Chapter 2732. In the end, Qingzhao nodded. Zhang Tianyi snickered. Both Taoist Wushu and Qingping looked at Zhang Tianyi in confusion. Then they turned to Qingzhao. They must have talked about something. Qingzhao didn't seem very willing. Zhang Tianyi suddenly made a seal with both hands. Both Taoist Wushu and Qingping wanted to see what was going on. Unfortunately, Zhang Tianyi's spell wasn't something they'd seen before. Just as Taoist Wushu and Qingping were confused, Zhang Tianyi's spell was complete, but he didn't use it on Mr. Jun Fang. It was on Qingzhao. The two were shocked again. What was going on? That spell just now was obviously an offensive spell. Even the two of them could feel the malice of the spell. Why would it be used on Qingzhao? Was Zhang Tianyi a spy? Of course, this thought only flashed past their minds. Because Qingzhao didn't resist at all. The spell accurately hit Qingzhao. Just then, Qingzhao's aura suddenly fell silent. Mr. Jun Fang retreated abruptly. He didn't know what was going on. Moreover, he was aware of his current state. If he allowed the evil spirits to continue corroding his body, then he wouldn't be able to escape the fate of being completely corroded by the evil spirits. But facing Qingzhao, he couldn't hide or retreat at all. He could only take a breather for now. He could feel that Qingzhao's sudden silence was like a volcano about to erupt. Just then, the crystal clones suddenly disappeared. Panting, Mr. Jun Fang stared at Qingzhao. The uneasiness was spreading. The crystal red powder didn't disperse. Instead, it gathered behind Qingzhao and then stuck to his skin. It seemed like something bad was about to happen. Suddenly, Qingzhao lifted his head. His round eyes flashed with scarlet light and his open mouth was dripping with saliva. Right now, Qingzhao didn't seem like a person. He was more like a beast. It was like a starving beast. Under the red powder, Qingzhao's skin looked like lava. Run! That was the only thought in Mr. Jun Fang's mind. Even though he knew that running in the middle of a battlefield was the stupidest decision. But instinct still won over reason. Mr. Jun Fang turned to run. But Qingzhao was like a beast. Run and sprint on all fours. He instantly appeared in front of Jun Bangsan, blocking his escape route. Enlightened being Wu Su and enlightened being Qingping were both surprised. He couldn't help but look at Zhang Tianyi. They obviously needed Zhang Tianyi's help. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qingzhao's current state with satisfaction. What Jun Bangsan felt right now wasn't danger. It was not just dangerous. Jun Fang unhesitatingly reached out with his demonized claws. But Qingzhao faced him with a lava claw as well. Jun Fang's demonized claw was torn off by Qingzhao's lava claw. But Qingzhao didn't throw it away. Instead, he brought it to his face and bit it. At this moment, everyone was pissed off. Jun Fang finally understood where this feeling came from. The man in front of him didn't want to kill him. It wanted to eat him. Qingzhao threw down his withered arm. Meanwhile, Qingzhao kept chewing. Qingzhao devoured the essence, blood, Jun Fang's demonic qi, and the power of the undead spirits. After all the power was devoured, the arm revealed its original appearance. Jun Fang couldn't help but take a few steps back. Look at you now! Aren't we the same kind? We're on the same side. Qingzhao slowly raised his head and stared at Jun Fang dangerously. Same kind? I'm different from you. Qingzhao suddenly pounced at Jun Fang. Stop! Do you want to become a demon? Qingzhao grabbed a piece of Jun Fang's flesh. The piece of flesh seemed to have been cursed. It emitted an ominous aura and power. Qingzhao didn't reject it. He devoured it directly. Enlightened being Wu Su and perfected being Qingping looked at Qingzhao's terrifying man-eating appearance. Old Zhang, what do you mean by this? Even if he's not from Dragon Tiger Mountain, there's no need to destroy him. Perfected being Qingping was rather angry. After all, she had secretly designated Qingzhao as the leader of Mao Mountain, or even an elder. You said that I destroyed him? What a joke. How can that kid be destroyed so easily? But now, do you think he's lost his mind? Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao. You haven't seen what he looks like when he loses his mind. If he really did, he would open his mouth and eat old Su instead of just absorbing the power of the undead. You're letting him absorb millions of thousand-year-old undead? You're harming him. If he becomes crazy, you won't be able to absolve yourself from the blame. Don't worry. His digestive ability is very good, Zhang Tianyi said. After all, he can swallow the serpent and come alive. That's not his limit. Zhang Tianyi had discovered something special about Qin Zhao when he was hit by the 9 viscera techniques. It was Qin Zhao's shocking digestive ability. It wasn't strange for him to swallow the flesh and essence of either of them. However, the serpent and Kunlai both walked the extreme path of cultivation. Their flesh and blood had long been tempered to the point of danger. But Qin Zhao felt like he had just finished eating beef and then had a big bowl of seafood noodles. There were no adverse reactions at all. At least, Qin Zhao didn't explode. Instead, he received unprecedented satisfaction. This made Zhang Tianyi feel that Qin Zhao's digestive ability had already surpassed the range of ordinary people. As for the 9 viscera techniques, Qin Zhao had been in seclusion for a few days. Zhang Tianyi hadn't been idle either, because Mo Han was stranded on Dragon Tiger Mountain. It wasn't difficult for Zhang Tianyi to dig something out of him. The 9 viscera techniques were Zhang Tianyi's spoils of war. Of course, Zhang Tianyi only needed one look to know the characteristics of the 9 viscera techniques. In another 2 days, Zhang Tianyi had improved the 9 viscera techniques. What Qin Zhao was hit by now was the improved 9 viscera techniques. It directly stimulated his appetite to the extreme, which was the appetite of the old version of the 9 viscera techniques when he lost control. It didn't need to take a few days to brew. At the same time, he would retain some rationality so that the person hit wouldn't completely lose control. Of course, the new version of the 9 viscera techniques that Zhang Tianyi had developed wasn't for ordinary people. If he used it to take revenge on his enemies, he didn't lack such spells. It didn't matter if he had the 9 viscera techniques or not. Zhang Tianyi's real target was Qin Zhao. Only Qin Zhao was suitable to use this move. Only Qin Zhao could withstand this beast-like appetite. At the same time, he had a monstrous appetite and an inhuman digestive ability. Moreover, Qin Zhao had experience with this. Other than Qin Zhao, probably no one could withstand such terrifying side effects. And now, this side effect was the key to turning the situation around. Chapter 2733. Of course, maintaining his rationality was so that he wouldn't eat everything. For example, Qin Zhao didn't want to eat Mr. Jun Fang. Although he was not a human now. But in essence, he was still human. Whether it was from the material structure of his body, or from his mode of thinking. He was still human, so Qin Zhao really couldn't do it. He was also a picky eater. Therefore, the 9 viscera techniques could overcome Qin Zhao's pickiness. At the very least, Jun Fang's Sanzine energy was no longer so difficult to swallow. Qin Zhao crushed a piece of flesh that had lost all its dark spirit power. Do you think this power is some kind of panacea? You'll end up like me, killed by another monster! Jun Fang roared as he struggled helplessly. In his eyes, Qin Zhao was a monster. You're not far from becoming a demon! Have you heard of the theory that demonized people are 3 times stronger? Qin Zhao's lava claw pressed down on Jun Fang's head and then pressed down heavily. A terrifying amount of spiritual energy gushed out from the hole in Jun Fang's head like a geyser. Qin Zhao opened his mouth and poured the dark spirit power into his body. Qin Zhao felt that his appetite was big enough. In the past, Qin Zhao had also devoured the negative emotions of the scumbags in American prisons. It was also in the millions. At the time, Qin Zhao didn't think it was a big deal. But now, Qin Zhao realized that he had still underestimated the power of evil spirits. This thing was much more advanced than the monsters materialized from negative emotions. At least, Qin Zhao felt full now. But being full meant that you could probably eat more. Moreover, if something like spirit energy were to leak out, it could probably make the entire Qinling Mountains barren. About the same as nuclear waste. Therefore, even if he had to force himself, he had to swallow the nuclear waste from the supernatural world. In the past, Qin Zhao thought that he wasn't very responsible. But now, he wished that he didn't have any sense of responsibility. A sense of responsibility was really troublesome. Especially in big trouble, the sense of responsibility would become even more troublesome. Qin Zhao's understanding of the inner world allowed him to be as powerful as his heart. However, one's appetite couldn't depend on their imagination. All Qin Zhao could do now was compress the dark power. He had to compress the yin energy as much as possible. However, compressing yin spirit power and compressing air were two different things. Moreover, compression inside the body was not the same thing as compression outside the body. With Qin Zhao's current abilities, if he went all out, he could even compress a mountain into a basketball. But in his stomach, even if he used all his strength, he couldn't do that. This dark power was not much more difficult than the other types of energy he had absorbed or assimilated in the past. The main problem was that the quantity was too large. Finally, Qin Zhao was full. He could only let the dark lava devour him. In fact, the dark magma didn't care what it ate. The final direction was still himself. However, he could treat the dark lava as his other stomach. But dark lava's situation was similar. The dark lava couldn't devour more food than Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao felt that he needed to change his stomach or digestive system. Qin Zhao wasn't afraid of bursting himself. He wouldn't burst anyway. In fact, when a person is full, most of the time, their stomach doesn't explode. On the contrary, if a person ate too much, they would only spit it out. Even though Qin Zhao had been affected by the 9 viscera techniques, he couldn't eat endlessly. The 9 viscera techniques only needed to be full, and the 9 viscera techniques would dissolve itself. Even after Zhang Tianyi's improved 9 viscera techniques, he still couldn't get rid of this condition. In that instant, Qin Zhao felt a sense of satisfaction. He could clearly feel his appetite rapidly disappearing. At the same time, Mr. Jun Fang's body was still emitting large amounts of yin spirit power. It was as if his body contained limitless yin spirit power. Of course, for a normal person, the yin spirit power he had could indeed be called limitless. In just a few breaths, the escaping yin spirit power had gathered into a black cloud in the sky. Zhang Tianyi! Think of a way! Qin Zhao turned around and roared. No way! Unless you can resurrect that Su Fu old ghost. Qin Zhao clearly couldn't accept this result. After all, he'd gone through so much trouble to kill the enemy. Now, he had to personally revive him. He would be crazy to accept this reason. Moreover, once Mr. Jun Fang revived, they would probably be in trouble. It was even possible that Mr. Jun Fang would use this opportunity to threaten them. Therefore, Qin Zhao definitely wouldn't revive Mr. Jun Fang. Qin Zhao took a deep breath. He looked around. The black cloud in the sky was getting thicker and thicker. The fire in the forest was also starting to die out because of the yin spirit power. This possibility was only 1 in 10,000. If all the yin spirit power spread out, everything within 1,000 miles might become a forbidden zone for life. Qin Zhao had an idea. He grabbed Mr. Jun Fang's body. He opened his mouth again and sucked the yin spirit power into his body. This time, he wasn't using the yin spirit power as food. He was guiding the yin spirit power into his inner world. Qin Zhao's appetite was limited. However, his inner world could contain limitless energy. Of course, Qin Zhao had already developed a unique method of channeling his qi. It was a breathing method that only suited him and the flame qi. Therefore, he hastily sucked the yin spirit power into his inner world. This wasn't a wise decision. Of course, Qin Zhao could also choose to let it go. He could just leave. After all, Qin Zhao had already done everything he could. He had basically done all Zhang Tianyi's request. However, after thinking for a long time, Qin Zhao still decided to do his last bit. Qin Zhao didn't just absorb the yin spirit power from Mr. Jun Fang's body. He also absorbed the Yin spirit power that had dissipated earlier. As Qin Zhao continuously absorbed the Yin spirit power, the Yin spirit power almost dyed his inner world black. However, the flame qi quickly took back the initiative and completely suppressed the Yin spirit power. Although the Yin spirit power was huge, it was still ownerless. It wouldn't actively attack or defend, and Qin Zhao could control the flame qi. However, Qin Zhao remembered that the conflict and opposition between the flame qi and Yin spirit power was very similar to old monster Kunlai's original cultivation method. It was a cultivation method after absorbing Yin and Yang qi. Although the path and method of operation were different, the idea was very similar. After the Yin and Yang qi was refined, it could produce chaotic energy. Then, could the refinement of the flame qi and Yin spirit power produce new energy? Chapter 2734. Of course, Qin Zhao couldn't do it on the spot. He had to find a place with no one around to do it. If he cultivated in front of Zhang Tianyi like this, he would probably be used as a test subject. Zhang Tianyi, Wishu, and Qinghe were all confused. Qin Zhao had clearly eaten too much earlier. Why did his appetite suddenly increase? Could something like appetite be activated in a berserk mode? While the three were still confused, Qin Zhao's dark lava had already covered Mr. Cunio's body. There wasn't any more dark power seeping out. A gust of wind blew past. Then the sky was covered by dark clouds again. But this time, the dark clouds weren't the result of a spell. It was a natural phenomenon. Soon, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, followed by a downpour. No one tried to block it. They enjoyed the baptism of the rain. It was as if they were washing away the pain and filth on their bodies. Qin Zhao looked over. In the end, his gaze landed on Zhang Tianyi, Wishu, and Qinghe. "Where's Tamamo? You let him go?" Qin Zhao's tone was somewhat interrogative. We didn't let her go," Qinghe said awkwardly. "We didn't stop her. Tamamo was indeed weaker than Mr. Cunio. Theoretically, Qin Zhao could take care of Mr. Cunio alone. If the three old guys worked together, they should have been able to keep Tamamo here. But that wasn't the case. Tamamo hadn't planned on fighting them at all. She'd already left a way out for herself. More importantly, Tamamo no Mei's strength was not weak. Defeating Tamamo might not be difficult. But killing her wouldn't be so easy. The biggest difference between Tamamo and Mr. Cunio was that Mr. Cunio couldn't hide. Mr. Jun Fang couldn't hide. No matter where he hid, he would be as conspicuous as a 120-watt light bulb. Tamamo only had to hide in a crowd. If she wanted to, she could hide until the end of time. This had nothing to do with a few people working together. Even if there were 10 people at the same level. If Tamamo wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to stop her. Receiving Qin Zhao's disdainful gaze, the three old guys all had unnatural expressions. "Never mind. I'm tired. Forget it. I'm tired." Qin Zhao's expression collapsed, revealing his fatigue. Qin Zhao didn't plan on asking where Tamamo no Mei had gone. In fact, Qin Zhao also knew how slippery Tamamo was. He had met her 3 times and fought her twice. And every time, he didn't make her stay. He told the 3 of them to leave Tamamo behind. It was indeed a little difficult for them. Moreover, if Tamamo no Mei went all out, he probably wouldn't be any easier to deal with than Jun Bangsan. This was because Tamamo no Mei had never revealed her true strength. No one knew how many trump cards she had. She was a demon that was even more ancient than Jun Bangsan. Qin Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi. "I want to read Dragon Tiger Mountain's records." Zhang Tianyi's mouth twitched. This time, he had tricked Qin Zhao into going back to China. He was treating Qin Zhao as a free fighter again. If he refused at this time, Qin Zhao would probably destroy his Dragon Tiger Mountain. Moreover, what Qin Zhao wanted to read would probably not be an ordinary book. "You absorbed so much Yin spirit energy, are you really okay?" Zhang Tianyi asked. "If something happens to me, are you going to suppress me?" Hee. Zhang Tianyi smiled awkwardly. He was embarrassed because Qin Zhao had hit the nail on the head. If anything happened to Qin Zhao, it would be his fault. Mr. Qin. Seeing Qin Zhao return to Dragon Tiger Mountain, Mo Han didn't know how he felt. Happy? Happy? Of course not. Mo Han knew his current position. He was Qin Zhao's slave. He had no right to speak in front of Qin Zhao. But in fact, he wasn't completely without benefits. At least, Qin Zhao could be considered his backer now. In the past, he had many strong enemies in China. Those who could be his enemy, live until now, and remember him were basically not easy to deal with. So, having a backer could indeed greatly increase his chances of survival. He knew that Qin Zhao had been dragged by Zhang Tianyi to deal with a terrifying enemy. It was said that it was an enemy that could cause a huge incident. Of course, he knew how terrifying a demon that could cause a huge incident was. In fact, in the incident back then, he was only cannon fodder. But he was still lucky enough to witness that unprecedented battle. Mo Han was also a demon that had experienced the incident 20 years ago. Now, Qin Zhao had returned unharmed. Then the demon would naturally be executed. Qin Zhao glanced at Mo Han and nodded. He didn't say anything else. After Qin Zhao arrived at Dragon Tiger Mountain, he went straight to the library. Even the secret books in the library were open to Qin Zhao. Zhang Tianyi was also very helpless. If he used the books in the library to fool Qin Zhao, then their friendship would be completely broken. This time, he was in the wrong for calling Qin Zhao back. If he played tricks on this kind of thing again, Qin Zhao definitely wouldn't care about him anymore. What Qin Zhao needed now was to systematically understand his own path. It was almost impossible to want a complete set of cultivation methods. Qin Zhao might be the person with the highest cultivation in human history, or at least one of them. So, there was currently no complete cultivation method or theory. Even the cultivation method Qin Zhao got from Old Monster Kunlai wasn't very complete. And it was more suitable for demons to cultivate. Even for the demon clan, most of them were not suitable to cultivate that cultivation method. It could be said that at Qin Zhao's level, it was no longer suitable for any of the existing cultivation methods and methods. Qin Zhao needed to cultivate and explore on his own. It wasn't a very pleasant thing to be the teacher of the first and all the latecomers. Because exploring meant the unknown, and the unknown meant danger. But at this time, the advantage of Qin Zhao's strong body and mental strength was displayed. If it was Zhang Tianyi, he would be asked if he dared to give him a set of cultivation deviation meals. But Qin Zhao didn't need to worry about this. What if he got a pain in his qi circulation? It was fine, he could just turn back. Others were worried about hurting his meridians and acupuncture points, but Qin Zhao didn't have such worries at all. Qin Zhao even dared to swallow the nuclear waste and yin qi in the spiritual world. He might even be able to develop a new train of thought. Of course, Qin Zhao's constitution was almost impossible to replicate. Qin Zhao being able to reach his current level was largely related to luck. There was also an important thing, the golden key. But it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was the evolution key. The evolution key fully explained the saying, "What can't kill me will make me stronger in the end." When Qin Zhao entered Dragon Tiger Mountain's library, the library was also locked, temporarily not allowing people to enter. Chapter 2735. What's going on? Why did his aura disappear? Zhang Tianyi sharply sensed that Qin Zhao's aura had suddenly disappeared from the library. This wasn't the first time. Qin Zhao's aura had disappeared irregularly in the past 2 days. At first, Zhang Tianyi would think that something had happened to Qin Zhao when he was cultivating. But as the number of times increased, Zhang Tianyi didn't find it strange anymore. He didn't give up on checking Qin Zhao's situation. But he still couldn't figure it out. Zhang Tianyi stood in front of the library, wondering if he should push the door open to see what was going on. Just then, the door opened from the inside. Qin Zhao walked out with a smile on his face. Zhang Tianyi revealed a trace of surprise. At the moment, Qin Zhao looked like an ordinary person. He didn't have any aura. Even the small world had disappeared. If Qin Zhao had concealed his aura, Zhang Tianyi could understand. But if the small world was concealed, it would make Qin Zhao feel like he was fighting him. That time, Qin Zhao had also completely merged the small world into his body. However, Qin Zhao was clearly not in the same state as before. How did you do it? Zhang Tianyi asked straightforwardly. Normally, it was harder for Shangqing realm experts to hide their cultivation than ordinary cultivators. If a cultivator was slightly better and had a higher perception, they would be able to sense the existence of the small world. Even if Qin Zhao had merged the small world into his body like last time, the abnormal aura on his body would also expose his strength. But right now, Qin Zhao's aura was like that of an ordinary person. If it wasn't for Qin Zhao's annoying face, Zhang Tianyi almost suspected that the person before him was an imposter. I'm not sure either. The micro world and my body have truly fused into one, and the inner world and the micro world have fused into one. In the inner world, after the flame qi and the yin spirit qi fused and tempered, a strange energy was produced. Because it was tempered by my own magic power, when it was stimulated by my magic power, this energy would vibrate and tear open an opening in a different space. Then, the pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth would directly pour into my body from this different space. In other words, even in an absolute vacuum environment, I won't lack spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and I won't lose my magic power due to the exhaustion of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. You said you can tear open a space? Do you know the origin of this alternate dimension? I don't know, Qin Zhao said. According to modern science, it should be a world that's vaster and larger than our world. It also has spiritual qi that's 100 times denser than ours. I even have a rather bold guess. Qin Zhao nodded. What guess? Have you considered the problem of the spiritual qi tide? What does your current breakthrough have to do with the spiritual energy tide? People have always speculated that Earth is actually the great Tao golden core of some peerless expert, and the heavenly patterns are the meridians of this peerless expert. You should be familiar with this rumor, right? Zhang Tianyi lowered his head and thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, but there's almost no basis for this speculation. If this is true, then this peerless expert is in the same realm as me. No, if this is true, then this peerless expert must be in a realm more higher than mine, so he must be able to tear open that alternate dimension. Then, the spiritual qi tide can explain why the density of spiritual qi will increase by 10, or even 100 times. It gives me the feeling that it's more like the cycle of a cultivation technique. Qin Zhao paused and then said, Also, we've all speculated that the evolution of a small world will eventually turn into a real world. If this speculation is correct, then isn't Earth a real example? Zhang Tianyi suddenly looked at Qin Zhao. You found the trick? No, Qin Zhao said helplessly. Although my cultivation has improved, I still have no clue about our speculation. At the moment, Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were not joking around as usual. Instead, he seriously communicated with Zhang Tianyi. Then do you think that Earth is alive? Qin Zhao shook his head. According to the clues we have in the hypothesis, I think it's dead. When is the next gathering? You decide the time, Qin Zhao said. Right now, their discussion was only vague. There were many things that could not be studied or discussed in depth. Moreover, Zhang Tianyi felt that he was not ready yet, because his realm was not high enough. Qin Zhao had already come into contact with things of that level. But Zhang Tianyi himself had no clue. Therefore, it was easy for Qin Zhao to make mistakes because he could not understand. This would be a huge loss to his cultivation and path. Did you find anything in the library of Mount Longhu? Yes, I found many useful things. They were quite enlightening for me. Which books enlightened you? Ha! You have to use your heart to find them. If you are fated, you will naturally find them. When Qin Zhao said this, he only felt that his body and mind were at ease. On the other hand, it was as if Zhang Tianyi had been fed dog shit. Because most of the time, he was the one saying this to others. In reality, there was nothing that could be said or not said. It was just that he was not willing to say it, or was too lazy to say it. But in the eyes of the low-level cultivators, it was because Zhang Tianyi was unfathomable and they were too mediocre. But as an expert, how could Zhang Tianyi not know? Qin Zhao's words were just to disgust him. Yes, Qin Zhao was purely trying to disgust Zhang Tianyi. Life is full of ups and downs. Zhang Tianyi roared. Don't bully me because I'm poor. Say this to me in 30 years. Qin Zhao sneered. Oh, I'm leaving. You're going back to America? In a few days, I've arranged a gathering with the employees of a domestic animation company. I'll go home after the Lantern Festival. Do you mind if I come too? Yes, Qin Zhao said with a cold expression. Don't be so stingy. At most, I'll invite you to the gathering of the studio I recruited. Ha! I've invested hundreds of millions of yuan into my animation company. It's not something any random person can compare to. My goal is for my company to change the domestic animation market, to charge out of Asia and into the world. Qin Zhao did not have such plans, but it did not stop him from bragging in front of Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Qin Zhao with disdain. Why don't you say charge out of the solar system and into the universe? Hee hee. Anyway, you can be jealous. My company is about to produce an animated film. How about we compete? I'll have my studio produce an animation too. Let's compare the ratings. Or the number of internet views. What ratings and views? My goal is the big screen. You're too low-end. I don't want to talk to you. You'll lower my level. Chapter 2736. Shouldn't you leave something behind before you leave? Zhang Tianyi asked. Qin Zhao turned to look at Zhang Tianyi. Why do you sound like a villain's lines when they reveal their true colors? Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao with a dark expression. He thought to himself, even if I'm a villain, I won't pick on a mad dog like you. You've seen my grand disciple. Fanya, how about it? Are you interested in being a teacher? Ha ha. Qin Zhao chuckled. Zhang Tianyi said, Goodbye. Don't go. Zhang Tianyi pulled Qin Zhao. You can even be a teacher in name. Wow. Should I be proud? Qin Zhao's face was full of disdain. She's the future star of Dragon Tiger Mountain. She might even be the sect leader or a celestial master. It's not embarrassing to be a teacher to a celestial master. Don't think I don't know that there are as many future sect leaders as dogs in your sect. Future celestial masters are everywhere, like that 1,000-year-old bloodline. Don't tell me you brought him here to be a mascot. Then I can't help it. There are too many talents in the sect. I have a headache too. Zhang Tianyi had an expression that was asking for a beating. However, there are so many prodigies who can truly reach the Shangqing realm. The successors who guard the mountain gates may not be able to walk out from among them. Talent is one thing, opportunity is another. This was the reality. If one could reach the Shangqing realm just by relying on talents, in this world, there wouldn't only be a handful of Shangqing realm experts. As far as Qin Zhao knew, there were only Biafra, the 23rd generation Bloody Mary, Zhang Tianyi, Wu Suzhenren, and Qing Pingzhenren. Furthermore, who knew how many heavenly materials and earthly treasures they had used in the process. And with the Celestial Master sect's current status and prestige, they needed at least one Shangqing realm master to protect them from being coveted. Even when he died and the spiritual tide era came. And Qin Zhao was undoubtedly the best guide for Fanya. Zhang Tianyi also knew that it was too difficult for Fanya to become the second Qin Zhao. But even if Fanya only reached the Shangqing realm, the Celestial Master sect of Dragon Tiger Mountain would make a fortune. No time, no interest, no ideas, no benefits. In fact, if Fanya really did manage to lead the Celestial Master sect on Longhu Mountain one day, she would indeed have a very good network of connections. Even if she did not manage to take over the Celestial Master sect of Mount Longhu in the end, she would still be an important figure in the sect. In the future, when you run into trouble, all you have to do is take it out. I'm the teacher of the Celestial Masters of Longhu Mountain. Just this title alone was enough to make him awesome. However, teaching disciples was a waste of time. Chen Zhao didn't need it. His laziness was a terminal cancer. Moreover, Chen Zhao didn't really like the disciples of the celestial sect of Dragon Tiger Mountain. Especially that Yang guy. To others, those with the surname Yang were noble and unsullied. But to Chen Zhao, she was a fucking saint. You owe me a favor and you're not going to return it just because you say so? I asked you to go undercover, but you went undercover and became one of the other party's people. If he didn't have a good sect, if he didn't have a good grandmaster. Chen Zhao cut him up like sashimi. Who knew if Fanya would also be trained by Zhang Tianyi to become the second Yanghua? Chen Zhao didn't plan to have another disciple who disobeyed him all the time. That would just be looking for trouble for himself. Zhang Tianyi still wanted to persuade him. But Chen Zhao made up his mind. He wouldn't listen. He would just chant. Old M.O., we're going down the mountain. M.O. Han put down the Dragon Tiger Mountain book in his hand. These few days, he was actually immersed in the book provided by the Taoist sacred ground. It was a little hard to extricate himself. The reason why Dragon Tiger Mountain did not restrict M.O. Han. Actually, it was because there were no restrictions on Chen Zhao. But what was the difference between Chen Zhao and M.O. Han? If M.O. Han really needed a book, Chen Zhao would tell him. He told Chen Zhao and Chen Zhao copied it out for him. So this restriction was meaningless. He might as well show it to him openly. Of course, the prerequisite was that he couldn't copy it. Although he was not very willing to leave Dragon Tiger Mountain, M.O. Han still had to follow Chen Zhao's orders. They took a flight back to Magic City. Over the past few days, Jiang Ting and Yi Ziqing had accompanied Fei Lai around the entire Sorcerer City. And Chen Zhao, this irresponsible man, only accompanied Fei Lai for 2 days. Then he disappeared without a trace. Jiang Ting and Yi Ziqing even reported him to Fei Lai. But Fei Lai was already used to this. If Chen Zhao could stay where he was obediently, that would be truly strange. Fei Lai was also not surprised by Chen Zhao's sudden return. Darling, are you done? Fei Lai had actually realized that something was wrong with Chen Zhao when he'd been hit by the 9 dirty spells. But she knew that she couldn't help, so she didn't show it. Yes, I'm done. Chen Zhao nodded. Uncle, you must have gone to defeat some demon king again. You didn't even bring me. The younger ones were very unhappy that Chen Zhao had left them behind. Even the most introverted Kilo was actually a restless young man. Moreover, he was already at the age of restlessness. Chen Zhao heard that when he was in school, he had already started fighting back against those who had bullied him. Jiang Ting and Yi Ziqing were also in the living room. They had just walked around the mall with Fei Lai. When they came back, they saw Chen Zhao. Hearing the children's words, they all thought that it was a fairy tale that Chen Zhao and Fei Lai had told them. And Chen Zhao was the hero in the fairy tale. Were all foreign children so childish? Chen Zhao chatted with the children for a bit. Then everyone went to the restaurant. Just then, a few police officers entered the restaurant. Chen Zhao recognized one of them. It was the policewoman who had brought him to the police station that day. Her name was Rowling. Hello, Officer Rowling. Mr. Chen, there's a murder case that requires your assistance. Chen Zhao's expression was slightly awkward. Officer Rowling, I was assisting last time too. Are you assisting this time too? Did I offend you? Just assisting, Rowling emphasized. You've already explained to me what you mean by assisting in the investigation. The situation this time is a bit special. Rowling stared at Chen Zhao, but then she turned to Yi Ziqing. Ms. Yi, the victim this time is your ex-boyfriend, Yu Keming. Yi Ziqing froze. How is that possible? He's dead? She didn't have any feelings for Yu Keming anymore. But when she heard that Yu Keming was dead, she was still shocked. Yes, he died in his own home 4 days ago. He was only discovered today. The body has already been found. I had some conflicts with him, but you don't suspect me of being the murderer, right? Chen Zhao said helplessly. It's not that I suspect you, but the situation this time is a bit special. The victim's death isn't normal. Chapter 2737. This time, Rowling really wanted Qin Zhao to help with the investigation. She didn't want to trip him up or play dirty tricks. Yi Ziqing still couldn't believe Yu Keming's death. When she saw Yu Keming's photo, all her disdain and hatred for Yu Keming disappeared. Of course, Qin Zhao saw the photo too. Even he couldn't help but sigh. This guy really died a horrible death. Yu Keming's organs were smeared in a forbidden way into a horrifying scene. Yu Keming still had a smile on his face before he died. A few days had passed and his body looked a bit swollen. After a short reunion with Fei Lai helplessly, Qin Zhao was forcefully taken away again. Of course, compared to Rowling's cold attitude last time, Qin Zhao's attitude was better this time. Perhaps it was because they'd been trapped in that special space together last time. So, Rowling felt that she and Qin Zhao were life and death friends. But to Qin Zhao, if Rowling had come out 2 days later, he probably would have forgotten about her. But to Qin Zhao, if Rowling had come out 2 days later, he probably would have forgotten about her. I didn't allow you to put your feet on the seat of my car. First of all, we're not friends. Second, even if we were, I wouldn't agree. Firstly, we're not friends. Secondly, even if we were friends, I wouldn't agree. Rowling didn't know what was in Qin Zhao's head. Was it more comfortable to sit cross-legged? Last time, he sat in the back seat. This time, he actually sat cross-legged in the front seat. What's wrong with you? I came to find you because I want to go to the crime scene with you and see if I can find any clues. Are you kidding? It's just a photo and I almost peed my pants. You want me to go to the crime scene? Do you think I ate too much for lunch? Qin Zhao raised his voice by 3 octaves. To be honest, even if Qin Zhao wasn't afraid of bloody scenes, he still didn't want to go. Because the crime scene wasn't bloody. It was disgusting. Rowling didn't care if Qin Zhao agreed to it or not. Then, Qin Zhao regretted it. He realized that bloody and disgusting were 2 different things. He could already feel it when he looked at the photo. However, it was still within Qin Zhao's acceptable range. But after Rowling dragged him to the crime scene, Qin Zhao felt that he'd overestimated his limits. He was used to big scenes and thought that he could handle it. But when he saw Yu Keming and the environment, he vomited. Really? I don't care who did this. Qin Zhao only wanted to say that he had lost. Although the body had been taken away by the police. But the layout of the scene was still the same. The stench still lingered in the air. Beauty, why did you drag me here? Now that I'm done being disgusted, can I go now? Show some respect. Policewomen? The people's police? Or a young lady? What do you want me to call you? I'm not in the mood to joke with you. Well, Officer Comrade, why did you call me here? I don't think there's anything I can help you with. Spend the night here with me. Damn, are you kidding me? Did it have to be so exciting right from the start? I'm a man with a family. Rowling's face was still dark as she looked at Qin Zhao. I think this isn't normal. It's like the ghost that hit the wall that day. I told my colleagues, but they didn't believe me. Stop joking. Whether or not there are ghosts here, it's not a place for people to live. Look here. If it's not a haunted house, then it's a bathroom. And it hasn't been flushed in decades. You want me to spend the night here? Are you trying to suffocate me to death? What if there's no ghost? We've wasted the night. Where's the ghost? Are we catching the ghost or delivering food? Have you thought it through? Rowling looked at him. I've investigated your recent whereabouts. You left some traces at Dragon Tiger Mountain. You even donated some money to the Taoist Association and became an honorary president. Did you run to Dragon Tiger Mountain to ask for help because of what happened that night? Did you get some ghost drawings from the Taoist? Or did you get a promise from a master that if you crush something when you're in danger, someone will appear to save you? What are you thinking? Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. If I can get help from a master just by donating money, I can donate so much that he'll run all over the place. Fine, fine. I know you're rich. Anyway, stay here with me tonight. Why should I? Then I'll take you back to the station. I won't lock you up for long. Just 24 hours. Do as you see fit. I have nothing to do with this. I know, but you had a conflict with him, after all. It's reasonable to lock you up for 24 hours. It's like letting the dead rest in peace. I think you won't object, right? I object. Why should I? Objection overruled. I really can't stay here for another second. If I do, I'll puke out last night's supper. Chen Zhao's face paled. I'm not afraid. What are you afraid of? It's a matter of smell. It has nothing to do with courage. Do you have a cold? Or maybe you don't have a sense of smell at all. Roland glanced at Chen Zhao. Then she pulled open the corner of her shirt, revealing the gun holster on her waist. Fine, fine. You're awesome, okay? The entire building was temporarily locked down because of this vicious incident. There was no one in the entire building except for Chen Zhao and Rolling. Chen Zhao really couldn't breathe in the room, so he sat in the corridor outside the door. A while later, Rolling came out too. Seeing Chen Zhao holding a bowl of instant noodles, she froze. Where did you get it? I saw that the neighbor's house wasn't closed, so I closed it for him. And then? When I was closing, I saw this bowl of noodles. I think it'll expire in another day. And then? I left $100. Is that why you didn't prepare a bowl for me? Without hesitation, Rolling commandeered the bowl of noodles in Chen Zhao's hands. Then, Chen Zhao picked up a bowl of noodles filled with sumptuous ingredients. Chen Zhao ate a few mouthfuls and glanced at Rolling. I saw that their ingredients are almost spoiled. Also, I'll help them deal with the expired ones. If she wasn't hungry, Rolling really wanted to flip the bowl of instant noodles. The instant noodles, which were originally delicious, were now completely tasteless. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt some kind of spiritual fluctuation in the wall he was leaning against. It was like something had appeared. Chen Zhao put down his bowl and chopsticks and glanced at Rolling beside him. Rolling glanced at him in surprise. What's wrong? Chen Zhao thought for a moment, and then shook his head. No, nothing. Whatever, that thing was too disgusting. I'll pretend I don't know. I'll spend the night in this corridor and run far away tomorrow. I'll run out of sorcery and never come back. Chapter 2738. Chen Zhao felt that with him leading the team, he should be able to keep Rolling company for the night. Tomorrow, he would be able to wash his hands of this matter, and wash his hands of it. As for what Rolling wanted to do after that, that had nothing to do with him. But things didn't go as he wished. Chen Zhao wanted to have a peaceful night. But someone wasn't willing. The elevator suddenly opened with a ding. The person who came out froze. At the moment, Chen Zhao and Rolling were sitting at the elevator door. They looked at each other awkwardly. A middle-aged man wearing a yellow Taoist robe walked out of the elevator. The man's yellow Taoist robe was very similar to the ones worn by charlatans in Hong Kong movies in the early 90s. The small mustache at the corner of his mouth made him look even more cunning. When the Taoist saw Chen Zhao and Rolling, his first reaction was to take out his peachwood sword. He was about to cast a spell on the two. If you dare to use a spell, I'll stuff your head into the toilet, Chen Zhao said telepathically to the Taoist. The Taoist was stunned. His eyes widened and he stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Instantly, he broke out in a cold sweat. Not everyone could use telepathic spells. It was basically an ability that only high-end cultivators had. And the man before him was clearly a high-end cultivator. After coming into contact with Chen Zhao's murderous gaze, the Taoist froze on the spot. The Taoist priest froze on the spot, not knowing what to do for a moment. The Taoist wanted to turn and leave. But just then, Rolling suddenly took out her gun and aimed it at the Taoist. Don't move! Hands up! The Taoist glanced at Chen Zhao and could only raise his hands helplessly. He was a third-rate Taoist cultivator. He couldn't block bullets. Also, Taoists weren't good at fighting. In particular, guns that were used against ordinary people were not their forte. Of course, under normal circumstances. At a distance of less than 2 meters. He could totally subdue Rolling before she could take out her gun. But now, Qin Zhao stood beside Rolling. He didn't dare to move at all. Qin Zhao could use telepathic spells and make such a threat. This was enough to prove that Qin Zhao was definitely stronger than a dabbler like him. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. I'm on your side. The Taoist priest quickly raised his hands and said, Who's on the same side as you? Rolling said coldly. Who are you? Why are you here? In fact, Rolling had already treated him as a suspect. According to the plot that she had made up for herself. It was an evil Taoist priest who wanted to use some evil magic. And Yu Keming was killed by this evil Taoist priest. Then, he used Yu Keming's corpse to set up that evil and disgusting scene. In the end, he just happened to see it. I also have a police comrade friend. This time, I was entrusted by him to come over and take a look at the situation. The Taoist priest quickly said. A police friend? Rolling frowned. She did not immediately accept the Taoist priest's explanation, and still pointed the gun at the Taoist priest. What's the name of your police friend? Which area is it in charge of? What's the police number? Rolling threw a few questions at him. This is the place. His name is Wang Zhe. Leader? Rolling was surprised, but his words didn't dispel her suspicions. Look at him. Rolling held the gun in one hand and took out the phone with the other. Leader, I met a sneaky Taoist priest. He said that he was entrusted by you. Is that true? You met that old liar? Old liar? What happened? He's a liar? He's in our area. He has a fortune-telling stall on Hualin Road. A few years ago, the city enforcement officers raided his stall. Then, when I passed by, I kicked the city enforcement officer. That old liar left me his business card and said that I can find him if I need anything. In recent years, he's helped me solve some problems. He really knows magic? I don't know if he knows magic, but this old liar has some connections. The old liar looked at Rolling. How about it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Only then did Rolling put down her gun. Although she still had some doubts, at least she no longer treated the old liar as a suspect. It wasn't because she trusted the old liar. It was because she trusted her leader. Why are you here? Leader Wang Zhe told me to take a look. Maybe I can find some clues here and help him solve the case. Rolling didn't think that her captain would tell her not to believe in any supernatural powers or gods. In the end, she'd actually hired a charlatan to take a look. Then why did you take out the peachwood sword when you saw us just now? I thought you were dirty things. Rolling's face darkened. The old liar looked at Qin Zhao carefully. He realized that Qin Zhao was looking at him with a smile. His gaze was really uncomfortable. A smiling tiger. The old liar thought to himself. You're the dirty thing, Rolling said angrily. Yes, I'm dirty, okay? The old liar had been on the streets for decades. He wasn't afraid of honor or disgrace. Rolling's angry words didn't even tickle him. Can you really tell what kind of spell it is? Rolling asked in a serious tone. The old liar glanced at Qin Zhao and thought, can't you just have the one beside you? Why do you have to trouble me? The old liar didn't mind being ordered around by a police comrade. Because Qin Zhao was a regular person, he could find some sense of superiority as a cultivator. But acting like a big shot in front of an expert, then he wouldn't be able to handle it. It would be fine if Qin Zhao pretended to be stable. If he was slightly out of sorts, if he did that, he would lose all his face. We're just trying to make a living. Why do you have to be so direct? The old liar decided to back out. He didn't want to follow Rolling's intentions. In any case, there was already an expert here to hold the fort. If he interfered, it would be breaking the rules. Plus, Qin Zhao was stronger than him. There was no need for him to stay and accumulate hatred. Maybe that brat's purpose was to leave a favorable impression in front of the policewoman and then chase after her. If he stayed, he might be targeted by Qin Zhao. Don't tell me you charlatans have some rule that you can't answer directly in front of regular people? If that's the case, I know the rules and I won't go around announcing it. Since you can work with our leader, you shouldn't mind working with me, right? The old liar glanced at Qingzhao. He thought, isn't this girl's brain a little developed? Although part of her speculation was correct. Actually, no one would care about that rule. As long as one didn't go to the TV station to perform, no one would care. Work together? You're thinking too much. I don't have a working relationship with your leader. Chapter 2739. The old liar emphasized again that he and Rolling's captain, Wang Zhe, were sworn enemies. No, sworn friends. Anyway, the old liar didn't want to work with Rolling. But just then, a head popped out of the door of Yu Keming's apartment beside Rolling. It was a bloody head. The place where the door of the rental house came into contact with the bloody skull had been corroded and turned black. When the old liar saw the head, he couldn't help but be terrified. He took a few steps back and sat on the ground. Blood demon! Rolling was so frightened that she pulled out her gun. Bang, bang! Rolling's 2 shots hit the head directly. Blood splattered out from the temples of the flesh head. But it didn't die. It wasn't even injured. The bullets slowly seeped out of its face and fell to the ground. The head turned and looked at Rolling. Then it shot a mouthful of bloody phlegm at her. Rolling suddenly felt her body being pulled by a huge force. She was flung 2 meters away. Looking back, she realized that Qingzhao had pulled her over. What are you doing? Qingzhao lifted his hand and pointed at the wall beside him. The bloody phlegm that the head had spat out earlier had already left a horrifying hole in the wall. You should thank me, Qingzhao said. By then, the old liar had also come back to his senses. He quickly jumped up and stabbed the peachwood sword into the head's neck, which was still unable to move. Borrowing the power of the 5 mountains, 9 revolutions lightning! A bolt of lightning suddenly flashed across the old liar's peachwood sword. But the head wasn't injured at all. Instead, it turned at an unbelievable angle and looked at the old liar above. Then, the peachwood sword that had stabbed into the head started to corrode. The rot kept spreading upwards. The old liar hurriedly let go of the peachwood sword. Hurry up and purify it! Rolling screamed in fear. Purification is something that foreigners do. If I want to do something, I can only do it to eliminate demons and protect the Tao, the old liar corrected. Then hurry up and eliminate demons and protect the Tao. Actually, regardless of whether it was domestic or foreign, purification or elimination, the process was similar. Basically, everyone's techniques were more or less the same. If they could get rid of the unclean things and leave behind a pure spirit body with no negative side effects, that would be considered purification. As for those who couldn't withstand it, that would be hopeless. That would be worth it to get rid of demons and defend the Tao. To put it simply, those who died would be slaying demons, while those who lived would be purified. Of course, most of the time, they only faced spiritual bodies. However, they were now facing a true demon. Get rid of my ass, this thing can't be killed. Motherfucker, which lunatic came up with this thing? The old swindler cursed. Although the old swindler's means were not high, his vision was not low. In the spirit world, as long as one had a demon with them, there was basically nothing good. Turning around and leaving was a normal option. If he couldn't leave, he would hide. This was the backup option. Of course, there were always high-end people who developed some spells. It was specifically used to carry out the true exorcism. However, for the time being, blood demons belonged to the category that couldn't be destroyed. There was really no way to destroy this thing. The only thing that worked was the seal. Can't you kill this thing? This thing is truly immortal. Hurry up and run. The old swindler was already planning to retreat. However, he still reminded Rolling to retreat out of professional ethics. Just then, black spots of erosion started appearing on the door of the rental house. Then, the blood demon's limbs appeared through the spots. After enduring the pressure that it shouldn't have, the door finally collapsed. Everyone finally saw the blood demon's true appearance. It was a thing that only maintained its human form with its head. Its limbs were completely pieced together. Even Picasso couldn't imagine such a twisted and weird thing. 5 limbs of different lengths were distributed in different positions. There was no symmetry at all. Its movements were also slightly awkward. Blood Demon looked at the old swindler, and then at Rolling. Finally, it looked at Chen Zhao. "It's you!" Hee hee. Blood Demon suddenly revealed a horrifying smile. Chen Zhao scratched his head. "You recognize me?" If Blood Demon hadn't said this, Chen Zhao wouldn't have noticed this bloody face. It had seemed to be you coming. "You snatched Xiqing. You stole my girlfriend. Do you think you can do whatever you want with money?" Blood Demon growled with a hideous expression. It's you." Chen Zhao shrugged, indicating that he just recognized him. "You're the one who lives off a woman and isn't professional at all, right?" Rolling and the old swindler broke out in a cold sweat. Didn't this guy see what state Blood Demon was in? Did he want to die faster? Did he have to anger Blood Demon? "I'm going to kill you!" As expected, Blood Demon was triggered by Chen Zhao's words. Just as Blood Demon pounced over, Chen Zhao suddenly grabbed the broom beside him. The broomstick stabbed into Blood Demon's mouth and nailed him to the wall. Even the old swindler was dumbfounded, not to mention Rolling. Of course, the Blood Demon could even corrode a refined peachwood sword. Not to mention the broomstick. But one had to admit that Chen Zhao's move was very cruel. "Hee hee. You don't think you can kill it like this?" Poof! Before the Blood Demon could finish, Chen Zhao suddenly swung his tail and kicked the Blood Demon's head away. Rolling stared at Chen Zhao in shock. In her impression, Chen Zhao was a rich person. He lived like a prince and was used to enjoying life. Plus, Chen Zhao had shown last time that he was overcautious and cowardly. So, she didn't think that Chen Zhao would dare to attack such a terrifying Blood Demon. In the end, who would have thought that Chen Zhao would not only use his hands, but also his feet? Furthermore, it was such a ferocious sweep. He kicked Blood Demon's head off and sent it flying. After the blood-colored head flew out, it evaporated in the air. Then, an even more twisted head grew out from Blood Demon's broken neck. "Let me finish what I have to say." Blood Demon wasn't afraid of Chen Zhao at all. Moreover, he didn't allow Chen Zhao to be angry at him. Chen Zhao didn't even let him finish. Blood Demon's cheeks puffed up and he was about to spit blood at Chen Zhao. But this mouthful of bloody phlegm was still brewing. His chin was hit hard by Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's kick almost broke the Blood Demon's neck. "You can't. Even if you become like this, you won't have a chance to take revenge," Chen Zhao said casually. "Ha! If you can't kill me, you can only wait for death. It's just a matter of time." Chapter 2740. The Blood Demon was very cowardly. At least, most people and he thought so. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't scared at all. If Chen Zhao could be defeated so easily, his enemies would probably create hundreds of Blood Demons and throw them at Chen Zhao. The only advantage the Blood Demon had before Chen Zhao was that it was disgusting. Rolling and the old liar were both stunned. They suddenly realized something. It was said to be a very powerful Blood Demon. It didn't seem like much. Chen Zhao kicked the Blood Demon's shoulder. The Blood Demon was kicked into the apartment directly. Then Chen Zhao followed. Rolling heard banging noises in the room. Chen Zhao seemed to be dismantling the house. She craned her neck and looked inside. Rolling saw Chen Zhao stabbing a chair leg into the Blood Demon's back. "Yo, looks like your flesh can't corrode stainless steel." Chen Zhao chuckled at the Blood Demon. "Let me go! I'll kill you!" The Blood Demon roared in anger. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Rolling. "Do you have the phone number of a secret department that deals with these things? For example, a special operation team." Rolling was dumbfounded. Before this, she didn't believe that there were supernatural things in the world. Where did he get the phone number of a secret department? No. "Do you have one?" Chen Zhao looked at the old liar. "No. You're in the industry. How can you not have one? Then do you have the phone number of the police station chief?" "I do," Rolling answered. "Ha ha. You can't kill me. It's time for you to die. The blood demon wanted to twist his body. But his body was locked by 4 stainless steel chair legs. Qin Zhao was still sitting in the chair. This made it impossible for the blood demon to move his twisted body. Let's try and see if there's a way to kill him, the old liar suggested. What idea do you have? Usually, unclean things are afraid of fire. Let's try a fire attack first, the old liar said. Rowling looked forward to the old liar's fire spell with interest. But she was soon disappointed. The old liar actually took out a gas can from the kitchen. Then he used the gas pipe to make a simple flamethrower. The blood demon howled, but the flamethrower didn't do much damage to him. When the flames sprayed on his skin would also be scorched black. However, it would quickly shed its skin and replace it with a new layer of skin. Let's try something else, Qin Zhao said. The smell is disgusting. Rowling and Old Liar covered their noses and tacitly stopped trying. Old Liar, is there any other way? The old swindler took out several dozen different talismans from his body. This is the Shadow Thunder incantation. Give it a try. The old swindler picked out one of the many talismans. A black thunderbolt burst out from the burnt talisman and struck the blood devil. The blood demon howled, but just like before, the wound quickly healed. Looks like it's useless. Let's try again. It's useless again, the dirty water technique. It's ineffective. Wood burial. Ineffective, ineffective, ineffective. Gradually, the old liar's forehead started to sweat. Could it be that this blood demon really couldn't be destroyed? Devil-aged metal destruction. The old swindler's last talisman shot out a dark golden sword light. The blood devil let out a miserable shriek. His shoulder was pierced, but the healing speed was extremely slow. Devil-aged metal destruction seems to work. He can still heal, but it's clearly much slower than before, the old swindler said in shock. It's probably because his resistance to metal spells isn't high, Qin Zhao said. Seeing that his flesh can't corrode stainless steel, we can more or less come to a conclusion. That shouldn't be the case. In the past, people tried to stab the blood demon with swords, but it didn't work. It's not that it didn't work. It's probably because his flesh and blood corroded a regular demon-vanquishing sword, Qin Zhao speculated. In other words, if the demon-vanquishing sword is coated with a layer of steel film, it can deal effective damage to it. I think so. Let me go. Let me go. I won't take revenge. I won't take revenge. Seeing that its weakness had been found, the blood demon immediately backed down. But just then, the old swindler suddenly let out a miserable shriek. A golden sword light pierced through the old swindler's shoulder. Qin Zhao and Rowling looked up. A stranger had appeared at the door. I'm so sorry. I didn't want to show myself, but now you want to get rid of the blood demon that I painstakingly created, so I have to show myself. It's all your fault. The stranger muttered to himself. The stranger muttered to himself. You don't know how much effort it takes to create a blood demon. Just the candidate alone is 1 in a million. Furthermore, he has to cooperate with me. Otherwise, it would be difficult to successfully create one. In the past 20 years, I've only been able to create 5. Rowling immediately pointed her gun at the stranger. Judging from his tone, he was the one who created the blood demon. In other words, he was the murder suspect. At the same time, he was the culprit behind all this. The stranger who had suddenly appeared wore a long robe and had a bald head. He didn't look old, but Qin Zhao felt that his life force had dried up. He was like an old man with a weak body. Of course, it was common for some cultivators to use evil spells to maintain their own life force through other people's life force. Qin Zhao had met quite a few cultivators like this. There were quite a few in foreign countries. But what Qin Zhao really cared about was that the stranger had actually evaded Qin Zhao's senses before appearing. To Qin Zhao, this was the most unbelievable thing. The stranger really couldn't be considered strong. At the very least, Qin Zhao had figured out most of the stranger's background with just one glance. However, Chen Zhao wasn't familiar with the Huaxia's spiritual world. Thus, he couldn't tell the stranger's background. But the old liar's expression instantly turned to panic. This panic wasn't just because the stranger had injured him with a sneak attack. It was also because he'd guessed the stranger's background. Taoist blood! How come it's you? How dare you step into Huaxia? Oh! Isn't this the ancient Taoist priest of the river? Qin Zhao and Rolling couldn't help but glance at the old liar. Ancient Taoist priest? Ancient Taoist priest? It sounded like there was some truth to this title. The old liar stood up with difficulty. Murderous intent appeared in Taoist Blood's eyes. The old liar knew his identity. This time, he'd secretly returned to Huaxia. If his identity was exposed, then he definitely wouldn't have the chance to escape like before. So the old liar had to die. The old Taoist priest naturally knew Taoist Blood's true identity. He was a demon who'd wreaked havoc more than a decade ago. Everyone in the Huaxia spiritual world wanted to kill him. Qin Zhao recognized the stranger's identity. The stranger would definitely kill the three of them to silence them. Thus, in this battle, he couldn't pretend to be a third-rate charlatan anymore. The old liar glanced at Qin Zhao out of the corner of his eye. Kid, this demon has an extraordinary background. Don't pretend to be a normal person. If you keep hiding, all three of us will die here. Chapter 2741. Rolling looked at him in disbelief. You too? Chen Zhao chuckled and didn't meet Rolling's gaze. He didn't respond to her. The blood demon wasn't much trouble for Chen Zhao. Even if they used ordinary people or slightly more extreme methods, Chen Zhao could solve it without raising Rolling's suspicions. But then came the blood ancestor Dallas. Chen Zhao probably wouldn't be able to deal with it like a normal person. Blood ancestor Dallas also looked at Chen Zhao. You are also a cultivator? I couldn't tell, but your blood energy is shockingly thick. If you are willing to cooperate with me, I can give you even greater power. Dallas Blood said nonchalantly. Turn into this thing? Chen Zhao said, pointing at the blood demon. It's even more advanced than this. Blood ancestor Dallas said. Then you need to let me weigh the pros and cons first, don't you think? Is my name not enough? Sorry, I just came back from abroad, Chen Zhao said, shrugging and smiling. I'm not familiar with the local environment. In fact, it wasn't that Chen Zhao wasn't familiar with the supernatural world. He just knew nothing about it. Therefore, he had no idea who the Taoist blood ancestor was. The old swindler had the urge to vomit blood. In fact, he'd had some hope for Qin Zhao. After all, Qin Zhao could talk to them telepathically. This was a very high-level spell. But when they heard that Qin Zhao had returned from abroad, they were all shocked. His mood instantly fell to the bottom of the valley. This was considered regional discrimination. Domestic spirit world cultivators had always held a lofty attitude toward foreign spirit world cultivators. However, this was also within reason. In most cases, when they were at the same cultivation level, domestic cultivators would beat foreign spiritualists. These were all standard operations. They heard that Qin Zhao had come back from abroad. The old liar first deducted 30% of Qin Zhao's strength. This blood ancestor Dallas was involved in a major event 20 years ago. Oh? Did he have a brilliant record in that incident? This wasn't the first time Qin Zhao had heard people mention the big event from 20 years ago. That would be a major event in the entire world. It was also a glorious era in which all the spiritualists in the world of the supernatural world cast aside their differences and fought together. Yes, it was indeed glorious. However, it was not in the battle against the peerless great demon and his army of demons and devils. Instead, it was in the matter of plotting against other cultivators. While everyone was busy fighting against the peerless great demon, he ambushed other cultivators from behind. Over 200 cultivators were ambushed by him, and many of their souls were plundered by him. It was also because of that incident that his reputation in the supernatural world became unbearably bad. Blood ancestor Dallas smiled. He was not angered by the old liar's derogatory words when introducing him. He was more concerned about the outcome of the match, the winner taking all. Naturally, it also included the right to speak. It was as if he had pressed the button, and he had lost. Therefore, what he had done was exposed. In fact, there were many people who were worse than him in the past. It was just that they had done it more discreetly. Regardless of time, race. There was never a shortage of traitors. You don't seem to have told me that I once defeated 12 grand cultivators on my own in a battle. The old liar's expression turned even uglier. He had purposely not said it. He was afraid of scaring Qin Zhao away. They were already at a disadvantage. Once Qin Zhao lost the courage to fight, he would only be defeated by Blood Ancestor Dallas one by one. No, with Blood Ancestor Dallas' strength, he didn't even need to defeat them one by one. The old liar was one of the 12 grand cultivators that Blood Ancestor Dallas had defeated in that battle. In that battle, Blood Ancestor Dallas had killed 8 people. 2 were heavily injured, 1 was completely crippled, and 1 was the old liar himself. Although the old liar's cultivation hadn't been crippled, his power had been greatly reduced. He had once been a first-rate grand cultivator, but now he only had first-rate vision. He had once stood at the peak of the supernatural world in Huaxia, but now he only had 1/10 or 2/10 of his cultivation left. For anyone who had once stood at the peak, it would not feel good to fall from the pedestal. This was also why the old liar had only been living as a charlatan all these years. Their only advantage now was that they were in the city. Even Blood Ancestor Dallas didn't dare to cause too much of a commotion here. His appearance in Huaxia this time was probably sneaky as well. No matter how arrogant Blood Ancestor Dallas was, he wouldn't dare to swagger around in Huaxia. Blood Ancestor Dallas, you may be skilled, but this is Huaxia. If you fight with us here, I'm afraid you won't even be able to walk out of this block before you'll be surrounded by cultivators from all directions. Humph! Don't try to scare me. What commotion can I cause against you guys? You think too highly of yourself. Although Blood Ancestor Dallas said that he didn't care, he was actually quite cautious. He was a Huaxia cultivator himself, so he naturally knew how vast the supernatural world was. Blood Ancestor Dallas didn't plan on waiting any longer, lest something unexpected happened. Blood Ancestor Dallas quickly formed seals with his hands. A scarlet mist emanated from his body. Huh! This is a spell from Dragon Tiger Mountain, right? Qin Zhao tilted his head and looked at Blood Ancestor Dallas' spell in confusion. How is that possible? That's the blood refinement magic, Old Liar said. Blood Ancestor Dallas created it himself. Qin Zhao frowned at Blood Ancestor Dallas. Why did this blood refinement magic look so much like Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heaven Master Sex Kiliakazam Return to One Divine Art? Qin Zhao had read through all of Dragon Tiger Mountain's top secret books, including private collections and ancient treasures. He didn't let go of any of them. Most of them didn't leave any impression, but Kiliakazam Return to One Divine Art was one of the few that left a deep impression on Qin Zhao. This was because this technique could allow one to cultivate divine powers. What was a divine power? In more conventional terms, it was called a superpower. There were usually 2 ways to obtain divine powers. One was born, through bloodline inheritance. When one awakened magic power, they would also awaken divine powers. The other was a sudden epiphany during cultivation. The probability of this was relatively low. There wasn't a clear pattern. Anyway, it was very random. It was possible to suddenly comprehend a divine power under any circumstances. However, one thing was certain: divine powers were very practical in battle. There were even some highly compatible divine abilities that could double one's cultivation and combat strength. However, this divine ability wasn't something that just anyone could possess. If one's reincarnation technique wasn't good enough, one could only rely on luck. However, the probability of awakening divine powers was similar to winning the lottery. It was possible to think about it, but not everyone had the luck to win the lottery. Kiliakazam Return to One Divine Art could increase the probability. It could increase to about 1%. From 1 in a few million to 1% was already a huge increase. Of course, Qin Zhao had also thought that if he was lucky, he might be able to win once. However, to Qin Zhao, the 1% chance was still not enough. Because of this, Qin Zhao had a deep impression of this technique. Chapter 2742. The Taoist blood ancestors' cultivation technique was very similar to the Kiliakasm return to one divine art, but they were also different. Of course, the old liar didn't believe him. The Taoist blood ancestor was a heretical sect, while Longhu Mountain's celestial master sect was a righteous sect. The two were completely unrelated. How could the Taoist blood ancestor use a cultivation technique from the Dragon Tiger Mountain's heavenly master sect? But Taoist narrowed his eyes at Qin Zhao. You actually recognize my cultivation technique? Are you a disciple of Longhu Mountain's celestial master sect? If I say yes, will you let me go? Qin Zhao chuckled as he looked at blood ancestor Taoist. Blood ancestor Taoist laughed too, but then he suddenly pointed at Qin Zhao. Blood boil. The next moment, a blood-colored mist suddenly enveloped Qin Zhao. At the same time, the temperature of the blood-colored mist rose to more than 1,000 degrees. Even at a distance of 2 meters, Old Liar and Rolling could feel the scorching hot steam. The two stared at Qin Zhao, who was enveloped in shock. I'm sorry. Qin Zhao, who was enveloped in the blood-red mist, suddenly asked. Apart from the sauna, do you have any other uses? Then, the blood-colored mist dispersed. However, the scattered mist once again gathered around blood ancestor Taoist. You don't look like a little Taoist. Blood ancestor Taoist looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. A normal Taoist priest wouldn't be able to block his attack, even if he was from Dragon Tiger Mountain's celestial master's sect. You seem to be mistaken about something. I am not a Taoist priest, nor am I a disciple of the celestial master sect of Longhu Mountain. Impossible. Since you can recognize the boundless convergence divine art, then you can only be a disciple of the Longhu Mountain's celestial master sect. I just went to the library of the celestial master sect on Mount Longhu a few days ago. Hee hee. Do you think I'll believe that? Ask the old man beside you if he believes it or not. Even the old liar didn't believe Qin Zhao, let alone the blood ancestor. What kind of place was the celestial master sect of Longhu Mountain? You, an outsider, want to go to the library of Mount Longhu? Do you think Celestial Master Zhang is a pushover? That fellow would not be happy without meat for 3 meals a day. That guy didn't hesitate to eat people. The title of number 1 in the world was not just for show. Blood ancestor Taoist considered himself a ruthless person. But in front of Zhang Tianyi, he still had to cower. Therefore, he did not believe that an outsider could stroll around the library of the Celestial Master sect on Longhu Mountain. It doesn't matter if you believe me or not. You just need to know that I'm very rich. I'm so rich that Zhang Tianyi wouldn't be angry even if I threw money at his face. Hee hee. You're the first person who dares to say such things about Zhang Tianyi. If I told you that Zhang Tianyi would be afraid of me, would you believe me? The look in blood ancestor Taoist's eyes was enough to explain his answer. I don't believe it. Blood ancestor Taoist hated Zhang Tianyi to the core. But there was one thing he had to admit. Zhang Tianyi, that old thing, he was really strong. He was a little too strong. Even if he had been hiding abroad for 20 years. His cultivation was several times stronger than it was 20 years ago. But he still didn't have the confidence to face Zhang Tianyi. No, it was not just lack of confidence. He knew very well that he would only die if he faced Zhang Tianyi. No matter who you are, no matter what your identity is, no one can save you now. Not even Zhang Tianyi. If that old guy knows that he can save me one day, he'll probably wake up laughing even in his dreams. Even if what you said is true, he won't have the chance to wake up laughing because he'll never have the chance. Blood ancestor Taoist's right arm suddenly seemed to turn into liquid. More accurately, it seemed to have become an arm made of blood. It was a tangible liquid. Blood ancestor Taoist suddenly swung at Qin Zhao. The bloody arm did not dissipate. Blood ancestor Taoist was extremely confident in his methods. This blood poison hand, as long as it came into contact with a drop of blood, it would immediately poison the other party. Blood poison was similar to corpse poison. As long as someone touched the skin, it would seep in. Blood poison would make the poisoned person's blood boil. Unlike the blood-colored mist from before, which only burned the enemy's skin, the blood poison would make the poisoned person's blood boil. The blood poison would directly affect the enemy's body, making the enemy's blood boil. Basically, no one could withstand this kind of boiling. The blood poison hand landed on Qin Zhao easily. After seeing Qin Zhao's skin turn red, the red color seeped in. Blood ancestor Dallas couldn't help but smile. As for the other old liar, that would be even easier. He was well aware of the old liar's injuries. Back then, he didn't hold back at all. It was a miracle that the old liar survived. Being able to leave behind 1/10 of his peak cultivation was already not bad. Qin Zhao's skin slowly turned red. It was like a rash. Qin Zhao looked at his hands. Soon, the redness faded. What kind of attack is this? Poison attack? Or a spell? Qin Zhao asked curiously. The blood ancestor's pupils constricted as he looked at Qin Zhao. How could this be? Why didn't the blood poison work? You're a little weird. Dallas stared at him. If you tell me the secret of how you cured the blood poison, I can consider letting you live. Qin Zhao chuckled. Instead of thinking about letting me live, you should consider using your half-step Shangqing realm cultivation to fight with all your might. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Dallas Blood's expression changed drastically. How did you know? Could the enemy see through his cultivation? How was that possible? Qin Zhao grinned. Generally speaking, very few people can get close to me without me sensing them. However, I didn't notice you even when you showed yourself. Either you're extremely good at hiding, but after seeing your methods with my own eyes, I can confirm that your hiding methods are rather ordinary, so I can only suspect that you have a small world. I can feel some traces of a small world on you. It's very similar to what I felt when I was half a step away from the Shangqing state. It's both that faintly discernible aura. Dallas Blood's expression finally turned serious. He was even a little panicked. That's impossible, right? This man who didn't even look 30 was a Shangqing realm cultivator? How was that possible? Since when was Shangqing realm so worthless? The old liar was confused. After all, he didn't have a strong background. He didn't have any powerful inheritance, so he never heard of Shangqing realm. But from Qin Zhao's words, it sounded like something incredible. As for Rolling, she was even more confused. After all, she was a true outsider. The conversation between Qin Zhao, the old liar, and Dallas Blood was like heaven to her. Chapter 2743. Dallas Blood's expression was cold, but his eyes became serious. You don't have to bluff. Dallas Blood analyzed calmly. If you're really half a step into the Shangqing realm, or even the Shangqing realm, there's no way your name doesn't exist in the spiritual world. Moreover, there's no precedent of someone reaching the Shangqing realm at your age. He wasn't sure if Qin Zhao was bluffing or not. He was just guessing. At the same time, he was boosting his confidence. Qin Zhao didn't attack. But he was indeed a bit too strong. Dallas Blood's 2 killing moves were completely ineffective against Qin Zhao. However, Dallas Blood planned to use his trump card now. Small world. This was something he'd comprehended from a different path. Although it was still quite superficial. This powerful change wasn't just limited to the strength of his dermic powers. It was the strength of all aspects. The feeling of controlling the world in his hands brought him unprecedented pleasure. Instead, it was the feeling of being powerful in all aspects. The feeling of having the world in his hands brought him an unprecedented pleasure. It was the strength of all aspects. The feeling of controlling the world in his hands brought him unprecedented pleasure. He believed that he could easily suppress the 12 great cultivators with just one hand. A trail of blood began to form beneath Dallas Blood's feet. Qin Zhao knew that this was Dallas Blood's spell. Qin Zhao knew that this was the Blood Ancestor's spell. This scene was really similar to a woman's monthly visit. Doubtless Blood looked at Qin Zhao coldly. He was angry at Qin Zhao's blabbering. But he believed that Qin Zhao wouldn't be able to laugh very soon. More and more blood appeared under Doubtless Blood's feet. More and more blood appeared under Doubtless Blood's feet. From the pool of blood, blood demons began to emerge one after another. 8 blood demons appeared from the front and back. 9 transformations blood demon art! The old liar's expression changed instantly. But Qin Zhao felt something else. These 8 blood demons seemed to be one with Doubtless Blood. They didn't seem like monsters, but more like a part of Doubtless Blood. This feeling. It was as if these 8 blood demons were Doubtless Blood's small world. That's right. It was a small world. Doubtless Blood had used this method to successfully reach half a step into the Shangqing realm. Qin Zhao wasn't unfamiliar with such a small world. When he was half a step into the Shangqing realm, Kong Mosa used the same method against his first opponent of the same level. Kong Mosa used his devil army as his own little world, and his power was connected with the devil army. As long as he didn't destroy his demon army, he would have endless power. And his demon army could pollute the entire area, turning the entire contaminated area into a part of Kang's Mosa. Blood Ancestor Doubtless, on the other hand, used the Blood Devil as his own little world. It seemed that Blood Ancestor Doubtless' small world was much smaller than Kong Mosa's. In fact, at their level, the size of the pocket world did not affect it much. Moreover, Blood Ancestor Doubtless' 8 blood demons were probably no weaker than Kong Mosa's demon army. However, it seemed that his little world wasn't perfect. Qin Zhao glanced at the blood demon that Yu Keming had transformed into. Was it because they were still missing one? This was indeed a clever way of doing things. If he was allowed to refine the 9th blood demon into his little world, he would definitely be able to refine it. He should be able to truly enter the Shangqing realm. Although it was a trick, there was no doubt about his strength. At least no one below the Shangqing realm could defeat him. The old liar broke out in a cold sweat. At the moment, Blood Ancestor Doubtless was in his eyes. He was no longer just terrifying. He had practically become a demon with boundless magic power. That suffocating aura seemed to have solidified the surrounding air. Blood Ancestor Doubtless' confidence also increased with the appearance of the 8 blood demons. He was still unfamiliar with this new realm. But when this power spread throughout his body and mind were changing. Endless power brought endless pleasure and indescribable confidence. The world was under his control. It even gave him an illusion. Even if Zhang Tianyi stood in front of him, he could still fight him. Perhaps this was the origin of the saying, "Dark 30% stronger, and 30% dumber." Ha! Blood Ancestor Doubtless suddenly roared. In an instant, a huge amount of blood chi turned into a terrifying blood-colored demon behind Blood Ancestor Doubtless. Although the blood-colored demon only had a head, it was already emitting a terrifying aura. "Kneel!" Blood Ancestor Doubtless snorted. He had only been halfway to the Shangqing realm for less than half a year. But he had already used it 4 times. Every time, his opponents would collapse physically and mentally the moment he activated his little world. This time, he had a deeper understanding of the little world. He believed that his opponent this time would be no exception. Rolling could no longer stand and fell to the ground. The old liar was slightly better, but only slightly. His legs were trembling and he couldn't attack with the peachwood sword at all. The only use of the sword in his hand was to give him some psychological comfort. But he knew that the peachwood sword was completely meaningless. Blood Ancestor Doubtless' terrifying strength had already exceeded his previous understanding of him. What kind of old monster was this? Was there no one else in the world who could control this old monster? Not enough. You don't even have the ability to escape. Qin Zhao calmly waved his finger. Humph! The moment Blood Ancestor Doubtless snorted, an even more terrifying pressure rushed toward Qin Zhao. The wall behind Qin Zhao also crumbled under the immense pressure. I told you! Qin Zhao raised his right arm and suddenly pinched the air. Not enough! Bang! In an instant, all the bloody light and the blood-colored monster formed by blood ancestor Dallas Blood She were crushed. Blood dyed the walls, ceiling, and floor of the room red. The old liar and blood ancestor Dallas' pupils contracted. How is this possible? Blood ancestor Dallas looked at Chen Zhao in shock. How did he do it? Blood ancestor Dallas knew very well how powerful he was. But how did he do it? Why did he shatter his blood god Dharma idol when he didn't feel anything? I want to see more spells that make me feel fresh, Chen Zhao said indifferently. If you can't satisfy my curiosity, then you'll die even faster. Blood ancestor Dallas had been unbridled and arrogant a moment ago, but now he was frowning deeply. Chen Zhao didn't release his own aura, but even so, Dallas still felt the pressure. Even though Chen Zhao was hiding his strength and aura, he could directly destroy his blood god Dharma? Just this move alone was enough for him to be cautious. Die! Blood ancestor Dallas' body trembled slightly. The blood on the walls instantly turned into countless blood thorns that shot toward Chen Zhao. Chapter 2744. Chen Zhao's pupils suddenly turned red. A red ripple suddenly spread out from Chen Zhao's body. The red ripple wasn't very eye-catching, but it was impossible to ignore. When the red ripple spread out, Old Liar and Rolling didn't feel anything strange. When it touched them, it was only a little warm. That was all. But the moment the red ripple touched the blood thorns, they evaporated. Dallas Blood didn't even have many places to hide. The moment the red ripple swept past, his skin was carbonized. Dallas Blood fell to the ground in pain. He had already forgotten when was the last time he'd been so heavily injured. Was it the great battle 20 years ago? That battle had indeed injured him to the brink of death. But it definitely hadn't been as pathetic as today. The kid in front of him was young, but his strength was terrifying. Rolling and Old Liar's expressions also froze. They didn't understand why the red ripple didn't hurt them at all when it touched them. But when it touched Dallas Blood, it would cause such damage. Dallas Blood's expression changed. He painstakingly healed the burns on his body and pressed his palms against the ground. In an instant, the color of blood spread out. Then, the inside and outside of the room turned red. Even the window was swallowed by the red. It was like the end of the world. At this moment, Old Liar and Rolling were no different. They didn't know what was happening before them at all. Chen Zhao was as calm as ever. An alternate space? Chen Zhao didn't expect Dallas Blood to have developed his own alternate space when he was half a step into the Shangqing realm. It also seemed that this wasn't a simple alternate space. The place was filled with a thick blood aura, as if it had been washed by a sea of blood. Chen Zhao looked at Dallas Blood in surprise. This guy's cultivation wasn't high, but the scale and complexity of this alternate space far exceeded his level. This alternate space was second only to the wasteland market that imitated the layout of Istanbul when Chen Zhao was in Istanbul last time. This alternate space definitely wasn't created and set up by Dallas Blood himself. At least, even Chen Zhao couldn't make such a huge and complicated alternate space. You're dead. Blood ancestor Wudao's eyes were filled with determination. Around Chen Zhao, apart from the room they were in, the entire building and even the entire street had disappeared. They were now in a private space. In this private space, once one's magic power was exhausted, without the owner's permission, one would not even be able to recover one's magic power by inhaling and exhaling spiritual energy. Of course, this kind of space could not trap a Shangqing realm master. Even a Shangqing realm cultivator would not be able to recover his mana here. However, a Shangqing realm expert could break through the alternate dimension and escape. So, Chen Zhao looked at Dallas in confusion. You want to trap me with this space? I know you're an expert in the Shangqing realm, but this is the land of the blood god. No one can escape from here, not even Zhang Tianyi. Blood ancestor Wudao was very confident about this. Chen Zhao sensed a tremendous amount of blood qi in the center of this place. It was so tremendous that even he could not catch up to it. A confident smile appeared on Blood Ancestor Wudao's face. This wasn't any other place. Outside, he was still half a step into the Shangqing realm. But here, he was a true Shangqing realm cultivator. And a top Shangqing realm cultivator. Here, he was a god, a true god. Suddenly, Chen Zhao felt the huge mass of blood qi in the center of the alternate dimension move. Then, the ground shook heavily. What happened next made Rolling and the old liar dumbfounded. The ceiling of the house had been lifted off. It was a blood-colored giant that could lift the ceiling with one palm. The blood-red giant's body was inlaid with obscure golden patterns. It was over 100 meters tall, and had a thick tail behind it. Blood God! He is a true blood god, a peerless expert in ancient times. The land of the blood god is his burial ground. After he died, he refined himself into a small world and turned it into this alternate dimension. Blood Ancestor Wudao said proudly. Blood Ancestor Dallas said proudly. I received the blood god's inheritance, and at the same time, I inherited this space. Here, the blood god is also a part of my small world. Blood god? Qin Zhao had never heard of this god before. But this didn't stop Qin Zhao from being curious about this blood god. He was definitely powerful. He was even more powerful than the god of strength that Qin Zhao had encountered in the abandoned Mount Olympus. Even if he was already dead, even if he had been dead for who knew how many thousands of years. This reminded Qin Zhao of the ancient remains that he found in the belly of Mount Chogo. The two weren't exactly strong or weak, but the way they dealt with their deaths clearly had their own characteristics and uniqueness. In the ancient remains of Mount Chogo, he had used a special circulation method to keep his remains from decaying for thousands of years, and he had also maintained his own small world. However, his essence, qi, and spirit had long dissipated. Other than the remains, there was nothing left. The blood god before him was even more special. He'd refined his own small world and himself into an alternate dimension. Qin Zhao didn't understand. He was gone and his essence, qi, and spirit had all dissipated. Why did he leave his body behind? Was he going to leave it as a memento? For example, the blood god before him had been preserved quite well. He probably had 10 to 20% of his strength when he was alive. However, he didn't have any consciousness at all. In his eyes, he'd been treated like a giant toy by an ant. If he met someone weak, he'd just bully them. But now that he met Qin Zhao, he'd just be a piece of cake. If he'd been alive, he might have been able to exchange a few blows with Qin Zhao. But he was already dead. So, Qin Zhao wondered if he should help him clean up his mess and take over his inheritance, if he still had any. Qin Zhao looked at the blood-colored giant before him. Blood Ancestor Dallas seemed to think that Qin Zhao had been scared out of his wits. This made him quite proud. Because he'd fought Qin Zhao 3 times before, he'd always been at a disadvantage. Now that he saw Qin Zhao scared out of his wits, his confidence skyrocketed again. Even the burns on his body didn't hurt as much anymore. Qin Zhao felt it was a pity. Such a huge amount of blood qi wasn't life force. How could blood qi gather? He could probably accumulate such a huge amount of life force by killing hundreds of thousands of people. This thing was used for big moves. It was useless at other times, at least not for Qin Zhao. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2745. Die! Blood Ancestor Dallas controlled Blood God's body and grabbed at the 3 people in the house. If this slap landed, the entire house would probably be crushed by him. Rolling and Old Liar's faces were drained of blood. Qin Zhao tilted his head slightly and looked at the descending palm. A brand new power seeped out from the depths of Qin Zhao's body and gathered in his right arm. This power was refined from Qin Dao's own immortal power, flame qi, and yin spirit power. The 3 of them combined into one. Qin Zhao called this power mixed elements qi. Different from chaotic qi, Qin Zhao's power could be said to be unique. Mixed elements, fusion, origin, beginning. Qin Zhao also combined this method of refinement with his own cultivation system and called it mixed elements returned to one. Of course, Qin Zhao had only succeeded after reading through many books in the Celestial Master Sect's library on Dragon Tiger Mountain and combining it with his actual situation and many secluded cultivation sessions. Mixed Elements Return to One could be said to be the first time Qin Zhao had unified all his cultivation systems. In the past, Qin Zhao's cultivation system was mainly based on power and had many complex branches. However, even after this unification, Qin Zhao still kept some special powers that couldn't be integrated into the main system. For example, Dark Lava and the Immaculate Eye, and Qin Zhao's control over water. These were all spells or bloodline powers. Qin Zhao couldn't integrate these powers into Mixed Elements Return to One. The moment Blood God's huge palm came down, Qin Zhao also waved his right arm. Whoosh! Blood God's body flew thousands of meters away. At the same time, Blood God's right arm and shoulder completely disappeared. In the distance, there were marks left by Blood God's fall and roll. The scene was a ghastly sight. Rolling and Old Liar's eyes were about to fall out. Even Blood Ancestor Dallas was dumbfounded. Is this a joke? Is this an illusion? Blood Ancestor Dallas immediately flew back 100 meters. It was too dangerous to be in such close contact with this man. Blood Ancestor Dallas felt like his hair was standing on end. How much power was needed to send the Blood God, who was like a giant god, flying thousands of meters away? Blood God stood up again. It seemed that the punch hadn't caused any fatal damage. Of course, he was already a corpse. Blood God's shattered shoulder began to regrow. However, after a bit of flesh grew out, it quickly rotted away, and the hatched flesh fell off again. Blood Progenitor Dallas' expression changed drastically again. What was going on? Wasn't the Blood God's body indestructible? Why can't I recover? That punch just now is called Nerve Blade. If you want to heal his damaged body, you'd better get rid of the power I left in his muscles and nerves first. Of course, the so-called nerve knife was just something he made up on the spot. The alternate dimension and the Blood God's body were one. Therefore, the Blood God's body would absorb the blood chi in the alternate dimension to repair itself. However, ever since Qin Zhao's power system had been integrated and he had obtained primordial chaos chi, Qin Zhao's power system had been completely integrated. The primordial chaos chi was not only reflected in its destructive power. Furthermore, it had a continuous destructive effect on the physical body. For example, the enemies he had encountered in the past had strong recovery abilities. Basically, if he wanted to repair his body, he had to expel the power that Qin Zhao had left behind. To Qin Zhao, primordial chaos chi was beneficial for strengthening his body. However, it was definitely not good for his enemies. It was more troublesome than most viruses. It was even terrifying. Apart from killing the body's cells, it could also devour vitality and mental energy to make itself stronger. Therefore, it was even harder to get rid of. If he didn't know how to expel it, he might make the primordial chaos chi even stronger. Just like the Blood God's body right now. Parts of the body that were corroded by the primordial chaos chi would lose their vitality and become rotten. Blood Progenitor Dallas stared at Qin Zhao with an uncertain expression. Qin Zhao's strength was beyond his imagination. Where's the Blood God's legacy? Give it to me, Qin Zhao said indifferently. You think I'll give it to you? Blood Progenitor Dallas gritted his teeth and stared at Qin Zhao. His eyes seemed to flash with determination. Qin Zhao raised his arms. Blood Progenitor Dallas immediately became alert. He could already sense that the situation might get out of control. However, he felt that he could still be saved. Qin Zhao's actions made him uneasy. After all, Qin Zhao had only used one arm and one punch to destroy the Blood God's body. But now, he actually raised his arms. It was obvious that this wasn't a normal attack. Just then, a large part of the dark blood-red sky suddenly caved in. It was as if someone was compressing the entire space from the outside in. Qin Zhao pulled his palms inward slightly and an even larger part appeared. The ground was also shaking. Huge unknown red objects kept falling from the sky. Everyone in the alternate space felt like the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. Blood progenitor Dallas had been coughing up blood since Chen Zhao started attacking. He couldn't even struggle now. He couldn't even stop the bleeding for a moment. Chen Zhao was going to crush the alternate space. He was really going to crush the blood god's space from the inside. Of course, it wasn't appropriate to say that he was crushing it. This was because Chen Zhao was compressing the blood qi in the alternate space from the outside. When blood progenitor Dallas was outside, he was only half a step into the Shangqing state. His small world was connected to the 8 blood demons, forming a small world. But after entering this place, he was the master of this place. The entire land of the blood god was his small world. So, when Chen Zhao destroyed this place, it was reflected back to him. Actually, if it was a normal small world, Chen Zhao wouldn't be able to destroy it. But this place wasn't a normal small world. Chen Zhao's palms pressed inwards by another inch. The world closed up a little more. The surrounding ground continued to crack, and the sky shattered. Rolling and Old Liar were actually at the same level. One was an ordinary person, while the other was a more knowledgeable cultivator. But in Chen Zhao's eyes, they were all the same. A beetle and an ant were the same in the eyes of humans. And the way they looked at Chen Zhao was the same. It wasn't the way they looked at gods, but the way they looked at monsters. "I'll kill you!" Blood progenitor Dallas didn't expect his so-called immortal body anymore. The so-called immortal body could fool low-level cultivators like Old Liar. Even Old Liar, who was at his peak 20 years ago, was only a low-level cultivator in the eyes of some people. But the person before them was definitely one of the small group that stood at the top of the pyramid. The so-called undying body was nothing but a joke in the eyes of this group of people. Chapter 2746. Normal cultivators couldn't kill blood demons. That was because they couldn't destroy their magic structure. But the people at the top of the pyramid were different. They didn't care about magic structure at all. They destroyed it from the microscopic level. In fact, demonic creatures like the blood devils couldn't even take form in front of them. If they wanted to, they could turn blood demons into a pile of rotten meat. Compared to blood demons, these people were more like monsters walking in the human world. For example, what was happening right now? The land of the blood god was hundreds of square kilometers wide. It was being crushed by this monster. Dallas Blood had thought that he was already one of these monsters. He had the right to be called a monster. But when he really faced such a monster, he finally realized how naive and ridiculous his thoughts had been. He'd never been one of these monsters. He hadn't even gotten close. He'd been arrogant just because he'd refined the land of the blood god and grasped the shallow secrets of the Shangqing realm. He'd been naive enough to think that he could escape even if he encountered Zhang Tianyi. In fact, that wasn't his biggest mistake. He'd actually thought that no one in the entire Huaxia's supernatural world could do anything to him except Zhang Tianyi. He'd only been back for 2 days and he'd already encountered such a monster. How many of these monsters were hidden in the entire Huaxia? Dallas Blood couldn't control the urge to vomit blood. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Chen Zhao's palms finally closed. The sky and ground were instantly shattered by the terrifying power. Enrolling in the Old Liar's eyes, everything in the world was collapsing. Dallas Blood's body also collapsed in an instant. A blood-colored figure quickly escaped from the dead body. But the next moment, Chen Zhao grabbed it. Dallas Blood's blood-colored soul struggled. But he wasn't Chen Zhao's match even when he was alive. Not to mention that his soul was weak after death. "You don't really think you can escape, do you?" Chen Zhao grinned. Dallas Blood saw that darkness was spreading over the crack in the collapsing world. And the man before him was the center of the darkness. He was definitely not a Taoist cultivator. He was a cultivator darker and more evil than Dallas Blood. Chen Zhao's dark shadow was corroding the land of the blood god. Chen Zhao wanted to find out the blood god's secret. Therefore, the land of the blood god's physical body, and the blood god's inheritance that blood patriarch Dallas had obtained were all indispensable. Now, all 3 of them were treated as his collection. Qin Zhao raised his hand and grabbed at the air with all his might. In an instant, the shattered blood-colored world was taken away like a dining table. The sky regained its radiant starry sky. Well, except for the building that was missing a section, everything else had returned to normal. Rolling and the old liar saw Dallas' soul being crushed into a glass orb and put away. The old swindler couldn't help but lament that he hadn't completely separated himself from the supernatural world. Why did the spirit world suddenly feel so foreign? The Dallas blood ancestor, who had wreaked havoc 20 years ago, and no one had been able to subdue him, had suddenly become so powerless? No, it wasn't that the blood ancestor was incompetent. It was that man who was too terrifying. When did such a terrifying monster appear in Huaxia's supernatural world? Furthermore, he didn't look like a good person. At the very least, the black substance that engulfed the shattered space didn't seem like something a righteous cultivator would use. Of course, the old liar definitely wouldn't shout about killing demons and protecting the Tao. Killing demons and protecting the Tao required capital. And he couldn't even beat Dallas' blood ancestor. Not to mention Qin Zhao, who had beaten Dallas' blood ancestor to the point that his stomach was bleeding. It's almost daybreak. I should go. Goodbye, police comrade. Rolling stared at Qin Zhao's departing figure in a daze. She didn't say anything stupid like needing Qin Zhao's cooperation in the investigation. She didn't ask about the supernatural world that didn't belong to her. To her, everything she had experienced last night was too unimaginable. However, it was like a dream. It was destined to be a dream. What a terrifying guy! The old liar lamented as he watched Qin Zhao's departing figure. You're also his kind, right? Rolling asked, glancing at the old liar. My kind? You overestimate me. He's one of the top few people in the world. As for me, even if I didn't have my old injuries, I'd still be nothing compared to him at my peak. Although the old liar's cultivation wasn't as high as Dallas' blood ancestor, he still had sharp eyes. That kind of power that could destroy the world was definitely someone who existed at the top of the pyramid in the supernatural world. He probably wasn't bragging when he said that he had walked around the Celestial Master Sect's library on Dragon Tiger Mountain. Qin Zhao got the news from Zhang Tianyi. The case regarding Yu Keming's death had been closed. The official answer was that he had committed suicide. According to the information Qin Zhao had obtained from Dallas' blood ancestor, Yu Keming had indeed committed suicide. Of course, it could also be said that he had been bewitched by Dallas' blood ancestor. Yu Keming wanted to find Qin Zhao for revenge. But he'd heard that Qin Zhao was also a cultivator. So, he'd found another way and actually contacted Dallas' blood ancestor. Then, he'd been bewitched by Dallas' blood ancestor. In a moment of impulse, Yu Keming had cooperated and completed the blood demon transformation ritual. Dallas' blood ancestor had originally wanted to use Yu Keming as the 9th blood demon and then complete the 9 transformation blood demon art. But in the end, he'd still failed because of Qin Zhao. Yu Keming's soul had been destroyed by Dallas' blood ancestor. But Dallas' blood ancestor wasn't much better off than Yu Keming. It could even be said that Dallas' blood ancestor's current situation was partly due to Yu Keming. If Dallas' blood ancestor had chosen someone else as his 9th blood demon, he probably wouldn't have ended up like this. At least, he wouldn't have met Qin Zhao. That afternoon, Yi Ziqing and Zhang Ting came to find Qin Zhao again. Both of them apologized for the trouble they'd caused Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao didn't take it to heart. Qin Zhao felt that this wasn't trouble at all. Moreover, these things weren't something they could control. In order to express their apology, Yi Ziqing took the initiative to help Qin Zhao organize Qin Zhao's animation company's annual party. In another 2 or 3 days, the animation company's employees would also come back one after another. Of course, this wasn't just to help Qin Zhao. This was because Zhang Ting had been in charge of the party. Qin Zhao was only responsible for the money. Zhang Ting was in charge of everything else. Qin Zhao used his free time to make up for the time he'd wasted a few days ago and walked around Shanghai. Ever since that night, Rolling hadn't appeared before Qin Zhao again. Chapter 2747. Is this man our boss? A new employee secretly asked an old employee at the banquet table. Yes, our big boss. The old employee nodded. Qin Zhao said a few words on the stage and then left. After all, it was a gathering, not a meeting. Moreover, Qin Zhao felt that it would be very stupid to say a lot of nonsense in any situation. Usually, there were 3 treasures for company gatherings: food, program, and lucky draw. The food went without saying. It was one of the best restaurants in Shanghai, at least for the price. The program was to invite some second or third-rate celebrities to perform. After the new year, many celebrities would leave their homes. It was normal for some companies to invite celebrities to perform for them. The prize of the lucky draw was just slightly better than that of an ordinary company's lucky draw, and the chances of winning were slightly higher. The so-called team building was actually a one-stop service of eating, drinking, and playing. In this aspect, Yi Ziqing arranged it better than Zhang Ting. It was said that before she became the technical director of this company, she'd been the HR manager and administrative director of a multinational company. Ms. Yi, are you interested in developing at our company? Chen Zhao asked Yi Ziqing, who was sitting across from him. Yi Ziqing smiled, but she was also considering Chen Zhao's invitation. Regarding her future, she couldn't just make a decision based on their relationship. Mr. Chen, do you know my current position and salary? I heard it from Mang Ting, Chen Zhao said. I can also give you the position of administrative director. Of course, the salary will be the highest in the country. Mr. Chen, I don't want a short-term salary. I want to see room for growth, not just for my position, but also for the company. Regarding growth, to be honest, I don't know how to manage a company, Chen Zhao said frankly. As for how big the company can be, I can't guarantee anything. It should be how big Zhang Ting wants it to be. The only thing I can do is not interfere with the company's management and development. I bought the company, but I'm more like an investor. I only invest money and don't manage it. Then, Mr. Chen, what's your goal in investing in Chinese comics? Is it for the return on investment? Or for your so-called dream? Chen Zhao thought about it. Would he get beaten up if he told the truth? His goal was to recruit the most professional and imaginative team. You should know that the current domestic animation industry is not very developed. At least compared to the American and Japanese animation industry, it is still in its infancy. However, I believe that the potential of Chinese comics far surpasses that of any other market. The rate of return is secondary. If we can achieve a situation where we don't make a loss in the next 5 years and make a profit in the next 10 years, that would be a profit for me. Investing in Chinese comics is more about preserving my assets. This answer was very pertinent. At least, Yi Ziqing felt that it was reasonable. Moreover, Chen Zhao was one of the few investors who was willing to let go and not interfere with the company's development. She could tell from the information she got from Zhang Ting. Other than the fact that Chen Zhao's treatment far exceeded the requirements of the contract, he would also occasionally ask some strange questions. Chen Zhao was the perfect investor that entrepreneurs liked the most. So far, there was only one person in the entire company that Chen Zhao had arranged to join. That was the supervisor in charge of finance, responsible for supervising the company's financial situation. But even so, Yi Ziqing wouldn't accept it easily. Because sometimes, a person's will would not always be able to do as they pleased. Even the investors themselves. If the investors' funds were disconnected, they might make up for it in other ways or raise funds. For example, they might sell the company they invested in. Such situations were everywhere. So Yi Ziqing felt that she had to ask about Chen Zhao's personal situation. Mr. Chen, what other investments do you have overseas? All my investments and assets are in real estate, and I don't owe the bank a single cent, so you don't have to worry about me running out of funds. My current net worth should be enough to buy 10,000 animation companies. If I compare it to the Forbes list of the world's richest people, my net worth should be equal to the sum of the top 3 people on the list. Yi Ziqing gasped. The sum of the top 3? Are you kidding me? What did that mean? The first place on the Forbes list had more than $100 billion. The second and third places also had $100 billion. In other words, Chen Zhao's net worth was more than $200 billion? Then why isn't Mr. Chen's name on the Forbes list? Because most of my assets are unlisted. Oh no, apart from the 20% shares of Caribbean Empire Cruise Line, I also have some Citibank shares and some PLM shares. These familiar stocks were enough to make Yi Ziqing's heart skip a beat. Even 1% of these shares was already wealth that most people in the world couldn't earn in their entire lives. However, these things were only a small portion of Chen Zhao's wealth. The value of these shares should be enough for Mr. Chen to enter the Forbes top 10, right? The 20% of Caribbean Empire Cruise Line is an unregistered share, but with just Citibank and PLM shares, I should be able to enter the top 20 next year. He could become one of the top 20 richest people in the world with a small portion of the listed company's shares. This shocking wealth made Yi Ziqing speechless. Then she thought about her previous plans. Yi Ziqing suddenly felt so insignificant. Before absolute wealth, anyone would feel insignificant. I also have a company with 90% absolute shares. It's also the most profitable in the world. Chen Zhao was obviously talking about Dashan Beer. Because it wasn't listed, there were no financial reports. However, Dashan Beer was definitely one of the most profitable. So, my 2 days' income can probably be used to invest in Chinese comics, Chen Zhao said with a shrug. Yi Ziqing suddenly didn't want to talk to Chen Zhao anymore. She suddenly understood why Chen Zhao would give his employees benefits so much. Why Fei Lai didn't even consider if she would max out her credit card when she shopped. This guy really had too much money to spend. Mr. Chen, you don't want to invest in something with high returns? High returns also mean high risks. This doesn't match my personality. I'd rather leave my money in the bank to earn interest than do risky investments. The interest Chen Zhao earned from leaving his money in the bank was different from ordinary people. Chen Zhao's savings in the bank had already exceeded $15 billion. Even banks would go crazy over such a huge amount. Chapter 2748. Yi Ziqing was shocked. She knew that Chen Zhao was rich. Zhang Ting had said it many times. However, Zhang Ting's words were still a bit subjective. She thought that Chen Zhao looked like a nouveau riche. It was just that he had made a fortune abroad. She was saying that Chen Zhao's money wouldn't last long. But now, Yi Ziqing finally understood. Even if Chen Zhao squandered, he wouldn't be able to keep up with his earning speed. Even if he bought a Gulfstream 8500 a day, he would have extra money. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't like high-risk investments. This would ensure that his wealth wouldn't increase in a short time. But it would also ensure that his wealth wouldn't shrink in a short time. Plus, he didn't think that a nouveau riche could be richer than the world's richest man. Yi Ziqing felt that following Chen Zhao would have a bright future. Plus, Chen Zhao's domestic animation company could become a springboard for Chen Zhao's trusted subordinates. Plus, Chen Zhao didn't like to interfere with the company's management and development. This would give executives like her more room to perform. What executives were most afraid of was the mentality of, I'm the big boss and everyone has to listen to me. I'm rich, so my opinions are professional. Mr. Chen, I think you're rich, but there's a problem with the way you present it. What problem? You're too nice to your employees. Zhang Ting said this too. She said that if you help them, they'll get revenge. If you give them high benefits and bonuses, they'll only think you're stupid. You have to let them know that you're rich, but you can't keep giving them high benefits and bonuses. Then I'll order 2 big meals every day. One to eat and one to pass. Is that okay? Actually, as long as you improve your food, taste, and temperament, people will naturally feel your wealth and status. I can't let them watch me eat, drink, and poop every day, right? Mr. Chen, you're abroad every day. We can't see you even if we want to, but it's easy to let them know that you're rich. They already know that I'm rich. It's different. They know you're rich, but they just think that you're a nouveau riche. Is there a difference? I'll tell you an effective method. What method? Go to a city and buy the most luxurious house there. Although the global real estate market has fluctuated greatly in the past 50 years, the price of high-end residential housing has been steadily increasing and has never fallen. Therefore, investing in high-end real estate is also a good choice, especially this kind of purchasing investment method. For you, there is no pressure, and you can obtain a good rate of return. You can also show your wealth to your employees. That's a good idea. Shall we start now? Of course. Do you have any recommendations in Shanghai? There are only a few high-end mansions in Shanghai, and the most famous one is Thompson. I know this series, but it should be very popular. It's the exact opposite. Thompson Premium has been open for 15 years. In these 15 years, they've only sold half of it. Their annual sales plan is to sell 5 sets. Yi Ziqing said again. Of course, there are more high-end houses in Shanghai than just Thompson, so Mr. Chen has many choices. Why didn't I think of buying a house in every place we go? It will be much more convenient for my family to travel in the future. We don't have to stay in hotels all day. Actually, in terms of business, Chen Zhao was indeed a noob. He also knew how talented he was in business. Therefore, he would never let an amateur command an expert. Chen Zhao had his current wealth because he knew how weak he was. Yi Ziqing's method was actually to show off his muscles in business. Rich people bought airplanes and yachts for the same purpose. For the top rich, they could enjoy the best quality of life no matter if they rented or bought it. But they still chose to buy it. Other than the return on investment, it was also because buying airplanes and yachts represented their muscles. Nevertheless, selling airplanes, yachts, and houses would all bring about a huge cash pressure. This meant that even if they had enough money, they would still choose to buy with loans. Once something happened to their business, their airplanes, yachts, or houses would probably be taken away by the bank too. This was also why the rich would go bankrupt if something happened to them. Some fluctuations in the market would make the banks nervous, which would make them withdraw their funds. Then, the rich who took loans would also be affected by the bank's policies, resulting in a series of problems. Of course, these problems were not problems for Chen Zhao. Because Chen Zhao was cash flow now. No fluctuations or shocks could affect Chen Zhao. Even if the housing market stretched from the Himalayas to the Mariana Trench, nothing would happen to Chen Zhao. Actually, there were many ways to show off his muscles. But that was too high profile. Yi Ziqing realized that Chen Zhao actually didn't like to be high profile. Otherwise, he would have easily made it onto the Forbes rich list. So, Yi Ziqing only used this low-profile method. She just had to let the employees know that their boss was very, very rich. That was enough. Yi Ziqing finally decided to join the animation company. With her reputation in the professional management industry, this was actually marrying the animation company. Under normal circumstances, a professional manager like Yi Ziqing, who had proven her ability and had sufficient qualifications, could totally find a more successful and promising company. Not Chen Zhao's animation company, which had just been established. Even before this, there hadn't been a single successful company. Yi Ziqing actually still valued Chen Zhao. Yi Ziqing didn't just want to lead the animation company to success. Instead, she wanted to join the core members of Chen Zhao's interest group and become a part of it. The next day, under Yi Ziqing's arrangements, all the employees were arranged to go to a vacation villa. Currently, most of the vacation villas in China existed in the form of farmhouses. However, this holiday villa near Shanghai was a true holiday villa. Beautiful scenery and delicious food were the basic requirements. There were also man-made ski resorts and amusement park facilities. Moreover, there were also some tame wild animals, which made this holiday villa an excellent place for a vacation. Plus, the surrounding environment made the employees of the animation company enjoy it so much that they forgot to leave. All the group expenses here would be paid by Chen Zhao. But apart from the vacation, Chen Zhao still requested for the special meeting. Chapter 2749. Boss, what's going on with this meeting? We were having a good time, why did we suddenly have a meeting? Has our big boss gone crazy? The new employee secretly asked his team leader. At this moment, the team leader looked like he hadn't slept for the whole night. Or perhaps, he was angered to the core. Anyway, he seemed to be in a very good state. The team leader was probably in a very bad mood at this moment. After all, he had such a good time these 2 days. Last night, he suddenly announced that the big boss would hold a special meeting today. At that time, he felt that the atmosphere had become very strange. In his heart, he wondered if this so-called special meeting had caused public anger. Shut up. Be more respectful to our livelihood. The team leader held the document in his hand tightly. In fact, he had only been on the job for less than 2 months. However, in the span of 2 months, he had experienced 2 special meetings. However, the first 2 special meetings were sudden situations. The big boss had made up his mind at the last minute. So at that time, all the employees were at a loss and were caught off guard. Later, the few proposals that were given to the big boss were actually relatively low-end proposals in the eyes of the team leader. Anyway, as a professional team leader, he felt that he could handle that kind of proposal. At the same time, he also felt sorry and regretful for not being able to come up with a better proposal at that time. In fact, this kind of mentality was shared by most of the employees. After all, this proposal could be exchanged for real money. And it was something that no one could erase. After all, they weren't dealing with their superior. It was their big boss. As for the new employees, such as Xiao Wang in front of him, of course, the team leader wouldn't tell him easily. After all, one more person meant one more competitor. The team leader was definitely not the only one who had this kind of thought. Almost all the employees with a little bit of experience thought so. The few new employees looked at the old employees who were arriving one after another. They found that the expressions of these old employees were a little strange. They looked a little nervous. The stiff expression on his face made him look very unhappy. The new employees thought that it was because of this impromptu meeting that made them unhappy. In fact, these old employees were in a kind of excited mood at the moment. Soon, the new employees found that these old employees had prepared a document. They even found that even the sweeping auntie who came with the group had prepared a document. Strange, what was that document for? Was it sent by the higher-ups about the content of this special meeting? Why didn't they have it? Team leader, what is this document for? What's the content of this meeting? No, it's just for show. Our big boss likes this set. The team leader explained casually. Oh, then do I need to prepare one too? No need. There are so many people here anyway. Big boss might not notice you. Besides, the meeting is about to start. Oh, alright then. Just then, Qin Zhao walked into the hall. Glancing at the staff in the venue, he picked up the microphone and went straight to the point. I'm sure everyone knows the content of this meeting. It's still the person with code name X, and the reward rules are the same. We'll follow the results of the previous meeting. But it's different from last time. X has comprehended an inner world. You can ask your questions now. The so-called principles were what Qin Zhao had said. They needed to analyze them as real people. It was impossible to deny whether this statement was in line with science or physics. They only needed to think according to this line of thought, or to make up for the imperfections or inaccuracies. President Qin, I want to know the settings of the inner world. The team leader asked impatiently. First, the inner world is the sea of consciousness. When X's spiritual power explosively increases, it also connects with the external world, forming a more complete force field. The term inner world comes from Taoist culture. It means that heaven and earth are united. The inner world is vast and boundless. In theory, it's endless. Rather than saying it's an inner world, it's more like a microscopic universe. The inner world also has an endless capacity for energy, but this capacity will still affect the body and become a burden on the body. So, even though the inner world is limitless, the body still has a limit. Qin Zhao talked endlessly about the inner world. Some of the information was something he'd already proven. Some of the information was guessed, and deduced based on his own situation. He couldn't prove it right or wrong yet. Qin Zhao glanced at the people in the room. Now you can start to follow my train of thought to perfect or correct my settings. President Qin, I think there's a problem with X's development of the inner world. Oh? What problem? When X's inner world absorbs external energy, it will burden the body. I don't think there should be a burden. Why? That's because apart from his inner world, his inner core is also constantly absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Why doesn't his body feel burdened when it absorbs energy? Instead, his inner world, a spiritual world that should be invisible and intangible, feels burdened? Qin Zhao couldn't help but fall silent. The employee continued. Feeling a burden means that the inner world and X's body have formed a connection. Or rather, they're one. It's like how ordinary people feel full when they eat too much, but the inner world eats too much and doesn't digest it. President Qin only said that the inner world absorbs energy, but he didn't say that the energy is refined. Although it can be used, it's only a very basic transformation and release of energy. It still lacks the most important process of digesting energy. Because of this, it's a burden on the body. Qin Zhao nodded unconsciously. He seemed to have really neglected this problem. The employee paused and continued to state his point of view. An X has always focused on quantity, not quality. Let's say that if the inner world absorbs quantity and digests it, it becomes quality. President Qin has always emphasized that X's energy is several times or even dozens of times that of cultivators of the same level. This is an advantage, but now it's a disadvantage. Why? For the same reason, is it faster to digest 1 unit of energy, or 100 units of energy faster? In other words, X will need several times or even dozens of times more time to digest the energy than cultivators of the same level, right? Yes, but in terms of energy refinement, everyone is different. Qin Zhao glanced at Zhang Ting beside him. I'll give him 20 points. The crowd burst into an uproar. Even Zhang Ting looked surprised. Chapter 2750. This was the rule Qin Zhao had set last time. Qin Zhao would score the proposals based on how good or bad they were. If Qin Zhao was satisfied with the proposal, he would naturally get a high score, and vice versa. Qin Zhao's score was completely random. There were no other standards. As for whether anyone objected? Not yet. According to Qin Zhao's standard, each point was worth $10,000. This meant that this employee had earned $200,000 from his speech just now. Almost everyone was in an uproar. Of course, this didn't include the new employees who had just joined before the new year. These new employees were still in a daze. They didn't understand what 20 points meant at all. But looking at everyone's expressions, they seemed to have missed something. The new employees thought that the seniors' expressions were frozen because of this impromptu meeting. But now, when they spoke, they seemed very lively. No, it wasn't as simple as that. They seemed to be very eager. Everyone kept flipping through the documents and information they'd prepared. Wang glanced at his team leader. He saw that his team leader was also flipping through the documents he'd prepared last night. Then, he seemed to find what he needed and immediately raised his hand. Wei, you do it! The team leader named by Zhang Ting stood up immediately. President Qin, regarding the growth of the inner world and the outer world, I feel that this has also verified the previous division of realms. The growth of the inner world and the outer world will eventually evolve into a true small world. Therefore, regarding the future growth of X, we still need to move in this direction. Wei drank some water and tried to make his statement clearer. He continued, Taoism has the heavenly cultivation method, and the universe takes form. What does that mean? The heavenly cultivation method can be understood as Taoism's divine power or boundless magical power, but it's recorded in the Taoist scriptures of the Nan family. The key is the word gain. This word is very obscure. In Taoism, gain is one's own gain and loss. Things that aren't one's own can't be obtained. Cultivation means to develop oneself. The universe takes form. If there's nothing in the universe, how can it take form? Naturally, we have to follow up with the phrase, heaven and earth are formless, and the universe has nothing. Turn nothing into something, turn nothingness into reality. Only then can we obtain the great Tao. Qin Zhao looked at Little Wei in surprise. Even if he was someone from the supernatural world, and he had recently crammed through a large number of Taoist scriptures, he was still a Taoist cultivator. But none of them were as transparent as Little Wei. Your name is Little Wei? President Qin, my name is Wei Shuwang. You're very knowledgeable about Taoism. Little Wei scratched his head in embarrassment. Hee. I was weak and sickly when I was young. My parents were afraid that I would die, so they sent me to live in a Taoist temple in the mountains for 2 years. They even donated a few dozen yuan, so I became a Taoist for a few years. It was only after I entered middle school that I left the Taoist temple. However, I'll give you 20 points. Your understanding of Taoism is very helpful to me. Little Wei immediately sat down happily. Team leader, what is this score for? Little Wang asked softly. Is it for performance evaluation? Our company is in the animation business. I don't think we do a performance evaluation, right? Little Wang could see that many envious and jealous gazes were directed at his team leader. Wasn't it just a score given by the big boss? Was there a need for that murderous look? What a huge grudge. It's nothing. I'm just here to exchange it for money. Little Wei said lightly. Oh, exchange it for money? No wonder. Little Wang pouted. He was not interested. However, why did his colleagues all act like they had never seen the world before? Wasn't it just some money? Was there a need for such a deep grudge? Team leader, how much can 1 point be exchanged for? Little Wang stretched out a finger. 10 yuan? 100 yuan? Don't tell me it's 1,000 yuan. Little Wang thought for a moment and looked at the naked gazes around him. His heart could not help but race. If 1 point could be exchanged for 1,000 yuan, didn't his team leader earn 20,000 yuan just because of what he said just now? That was really possible. If it was just 1 point for 100 yuan, these people would not have such ferocious gazes. It seemed like he had to fight for it. It's 10,000 yuan. 10,000 yuan? Little Wang's eyes widened. He looked at his team leader in shock. It's 10,000 yuan for 20 points, right? No, it's 10,000 yuan for 1 point. Team leader, your speech just now was worth 200,000 yuan, right? Yes, it's 200,000 yuan, but it's not in yuan. Where's the currency from? Korean? Or Japanese? Don't tell me it's Vietnamese dong? It's in US dollars. 200,000. Little Wei's face was red. Little Wang's eyes widened even more. How was that possible? 200,000? If it was changed to yuan, it was enough to buy a house in a second or third tier city. Even in first tier cities other than Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, 200,000 was enough for a down payment. You didn't tell me, ha. I thought you knew. Little Wei said, chuckling. What a joke. The competition is so intense now. If I tell you, it will be even more intense. This was Little Wei's true thoughts. It was also what most employees were thinking. Little Wang's heart was filled with remorse, just like most of the employees. He looked at Qin Zhao expectantly. Just then, a few more people stood up to speak. You're not bad. 1 point for each of you as encouragement. Everyone roughly understood that the last few people's speeches did not satisfy Qin Zhao. The so-called not bad meant that it was barely passable. The few people were helpless too. The materials they had prepared for the exam did not match what Qin Zhao wanted to hear this time. Therefore, it was naturally difficult for them to satisfy Qin Zhao. But I still hope that the later speeches can be more professional. Actually, Qin Zhao had already gained a lot from today's special meeting. At least, compared to the money he had paid, it was completely negligible. The first person mentioned his current key problem. As for the second person, he mentioned his own path forward. Zhang Ting had made a similar suggestion before. However, Zhang Ting's suggestion was still at a shallow stage. This person's suggestion, on the other hand, was more profound but not hard to understand. Moreover, he was proficient in Taoism. His quotations were more convincing. The second person's speech was not bad either. If it had been before, Qin Zhao would probably have given him more points. However, if it was said later, it would be obvious who was better. It would be difficult to gain Qin Zhao's approval. Chapter 2751. After the special meeting, the new employees finally understood. They thought that the big boss just wanted to make his presence known. So, they didn't take it to heart last night. On the other hand, the older employees were all preparing in secret. In the end, a few of the well-prepared old employees made a lot of money. Apart from the first two who spoke, they got 20 points. A few others got 5 to 10 points too. That was about a quarter of the total. The new employees who lost their chance all beat their chests. They regretted back then. President Qin, I really don't understand the purpose of this special meeting. Yi Ziqing looked at Qin Zhao, confused. Zhang Ting once said that you're planning to shoot a movie in Hollywood and need to perfect the settings. Yes, is there a problem? I still know about Hollywood's assembly line operation model. Hollywood has its own team of screenwriters. It is impossible to find outsiders to do the setting. What's more, even a screenwriter team can't easily invest hundreds of thousands of dollars. In addition to what Zhang Ting said before, you seem to have invested millions of dollars in this X setting. This is very unreasonable. Okay, don't worry about this. I'll request these special meetings from time to time. Apart from that, I won't interfere with any decisions or development of the company. To Yi Ziqing, this was just Qin Zhao's personal temper. It wasn't a problem for the company. She naturally wouldn't waste time discussing the meaning of this with Qin Zhao. She only asked Qin Zhao out of curiosity. As for whether Qin Zhao knew how to squander, squandering was also a matter of talent. As long as Qin Zhao didn't go to wholesale nuclear warheads, his family business wouldn't be finished. Yi Ziqing and Zhang Ting also received Qin Zhao's orders. They could spend as much money as they could on the following group projects. Anyway, he had to let the employees know that he was rich, very rich. Actually, this was already an unnecessary move. Qin Zhao planned to go home in a few days. His domestic matters had also come to an end. Qin Zhao didn't have many special arrangements for Mo Han. He just wanted him to start a company first. For now, there was nothing else he needed to deal with. But that might not be the case in the future. After all, Qin Zhao was overseas. If there was something he needed to deal with in China, it would be much more convenient to have a local spokesperson. Mr. Chen, are you still in Shanghai? Qin Zhao received another call from Wang He. Although he was a little surprised, it was reasonable. Compared to the first time he met Wang He was still a little childish. The current Wang He had matured a lot, be it in terms of speech or behavior. In fact, Wang He was only 2 or 3 years younger than Qin Zhao. However, after he graduated, he had a good path to stardom and was controlled by his management company and manager. Therefore, he had very little personal experience. This was also why Qin Zhao felt that it was childish. But after not seeing him for a year, Wang He had become a completely different person. At the very least, Wang He was on point when it came to being steady. Yeah, I'm still here, but I've booked a flight back to Los Angeles the day after tomorrow. That's great. I'm going to Shanghai today too. Last time we parted ways in a hurry, so I didn't have the chance to meet up with Mr. Qin. This time, I finally have the chance. Superstar, are you free? I've just been banned. Now that all my work has been cleared, I'm thinking of getting my unemployment benefits, haha. Wang He said with a chuckle. Qin Zhao did not think much of it. Wang He was a famous celebrity. Wang He was a famous star, so even if others wanted to ban him, they couldn't. Unless he had done something against the law or morality, and it had been exposed. Then, the country would ban him. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, no company would be able to ban Wang He. What happened? Nothing. I just broke up with my management company and decided to give myself a few days off, Wang He said casually. The management company that he had just terminated his contract with would have a hard time replacing an artist that was 2 levels lower than him, let alone banning him. The so-called ban was just a bargaining chip. If Wang He was willing, he could just throw the penalty fee in the other party's face and call it a day. Of course, if he really did that, there would be enmity between them. They were all in the entertainment industry, so of course they couldn't do that. After all, they would meet frequently. Also, if he forcefully terminated his contract, it would affect Wang He's image and reputation. Therefore, if they fell out, it would be a lose-lose situation. No one would end up well. The reason why the matter hadn't been exposed yet was that their teams were still negotiating in private. After the negotiation, they would smile and say that they parted peacefully. Then, they would compliment each other and show that they were good partners. If the negotiation didn't go well, they would expose each other in the media and slander each other. This was the normal process. All right, since you're free and I'm still here, let's get together. Chen Zhao's impression of Wang He had improved a lot. At least, Wang He was a mature person now. Therefore, interacting with him wasn't a bad memory. When Chen Zhao saw Wang He again, he was still wearing a mask, but the big group of people behind him was gone. There was only an unfamiliar follower. Mr. Chen. Wang He came over and greeted him. He pulled out a chair and sat down. At the same time, he said to his assistant, Xiao He, go sit over there. I'm going to talk to my friend. Oh, okay, Brother Wang. Xiao He's assistant was quite young. He looked like he had just graduated from school. Before they met, Chen Zhao had already guessed that Wang He would change his assistant. Sister Li was too domineering last time. Her domineering personality was the same as Wang He's. Therefore, they couldn't work together for long. Xiao He's assistant, on the other hand, was basically an obedient child. Chen Zhao didn't know the future, but he was a ball of dough in front of Wang He right now. Mr. Chen, how are you doing in China? I'm not a foreigner. Although I'm living abroad now, your words make me feel like I'm talking to a foreigner. Haha. Why do you care? I'm just asking. Wang He laughed. Mr. Chen, do you remember my suggestion last time? What suggestion? Chen Zhao didn't remember. I plan to open a studio and want to invite you to invest. Chen Zhao shook his head. Sorry, I don't have such plans. Chen Ke, Sister Chen wants to invest too. Wang He reminded him. We're cousins, but we're not as close as you think. Chen Zhao shrugged. I'm not even close to you. Chapter 2752. If you don't have enough money, I can lend you some, Chen Zhao said calmly. Wang He smiled. It wasn't that he didn't have enough money. He just needed connections. With his name, as long as he spread the word, a lot of people would be willing to invest in him. Therefore, he didn't lack money or investments. He invited Chen Zhao because he liked Chen Zhao's strong capital and connections in Hollywood. If it was just money, Wang He didn't lack rich people like that. Mr. Chen, don't you want to know about the future plans of my studio? Sure. Chen Zhao didn't reject him. I've already contacted a few big international companies, Wang He said. They're all interested in signing endorsements with me, but I'll only sign with them after my dispute with the management company is over. Wang He's meaning was clear. If Chen Zhao was willing to cooperate, he could get back his initial investment in an instant. Wang He's popularity in China and status in the entertainment industry meant that he wouldn't lose money investing in him. Even in the Asian region, Wang He had a huge market appeal. This was one of the few investments that would definitely make a profit. Of course, this alone wouldn't be enough to move Chen Zhao. If Chen Zhao kept his money in the bank, he could still make a profit. The interest rate he signed with the bank was higher than the depreciation of the currency. Wang He secretly observed Chen Zhao's expression. He was slightly disappointed by Chen Zhao's calm response. But this was within his expectations. After all, Chen Zhao had a big business. This small benefit wasn't enough to move him. Of course, this is a routine work arrangement. At the same time, I also bought some popular domestic IP, including 3 movies and 2 TV series. Although 2 of the TV series have not yet started shooting, they have been ordered by 2 provincial satellite TV stations to premiere them. Among the 3 movies, 1 is for the international market. At the same time, my studio also signed a contract with the largest domestic video platform, Penguin, to cooperate with 3 variety shows in the first round. When he talked non-stop about his work plans and the studio's plans. He also talked about the future he envisioned. Qin Zhao had to admit that he had done work before coming to see Qin Zhao. At least his words were meaningful and his attitude wasn't arrogant or impatient. Even if he didn't have his current status in the entertainment industry, working with someone like him could ensure the return of his investment. Qin Zhao rubbed his chin and considered. Other than the return of investment, there's something more important. He looked at Qin Zhao. What is it? Influence, he said. At present, there are already several international public welfare organizations that are in talks with my team, preparing for further cooperation. At the government level, there are also 2 cities that intend to invite me to be their city's image representative. At present, I am still observing to see which city is more worthy of me being their image representative. The more halos I have, in the future, as my partners, if they need to speak up, they can also speak through me. This will also attract more attention. Chen Zhao could not help but raise his head and examine Wang He seriously. He did not expect Wang He to have already considered this issue. Right now, most of the artists were still struggling with the problem of raising their status. On the other hand, Wang He was already considering the issue of his influence. But he had to admit that Wang He's plan was indeed very attractive. Qin Zhao wasn't interested in the return, but he wasn't against it either. Mr. Chen, I remember you told me last time that you've just acquired a Chinese animation studio. After investigating for the past few days, I found out that the studio has been transformed into an animation company. From my perspective, I can also make a positive direction for the company's works. So if I invest in your studio, what do I need to do? If Mr. Chen has suitable resources in Hollywood, please help me get them. He looked at Qin Zhao with burning eyes. After tasting the sweetness, He naturally couldn't forget about Hollywood. It wasn't just the domestic entertainment industry. In fact, Hollywood was the entertainment center of the entire world. This was an indisputable fact. Celebrities outside of Hollywood flocked to Hollywood like ducks. He could not live the rest of his life with the halo of his past. Although he was still in his prime, he also needed to plan ahead. As his former guide in Hollywood, Qin Zhao naturally had this right. I can't promise you anything about this, Qin Zhao said. This condition isn't mandatory, but if Mr. Chen happens to have this opportunity, please consider me first. How much investment do you need? 100 million, 20% of the shares. 100 million was not a small amount, even if it was RMB. If it was someone else, even if it was 100% of the shares, Qin Zhao would not care. But this person was Wang He. He was worth this price. My assistant will contact you tomorrow, Qin Zhao said. Wang He finally revealed a relaxed smile. How many shares does Chen Ke have? Also 25%. Not only is she a partner, but she's also the studio's product, Wang He said. The studio is specially for her and me. All the resources are allocated to us. Our positions are similar, and we don't have any conflicts of resources, so there's no competition. Qin Zhao nodded. After all, their gender determined the division of resources, so the possibility of them working together was higher than competing for resources. By the way, have you decided on the name of the studio? Dream Entertainment, Wang He said. Then I wish you and Qin Ke's dreams come true and success in your career. Us. Other than investing in movies and variety shows, are there any other businesses? Also, trainee training. Qin Zhao did not know much about trainees. Trainees? Those little fresh meats? Actually, those that can already be seen in the media are already successful artists. They have their own fan groups, their own images, and their own personas. They can already make money. If they can also produce a good work, they'll be considered to be in the top tier. Then is training trainees profitable? Definitely not in the early stages. If you don't invest, there won't be any returns. How's the risk? It's not small. One he said emotionally as an experienced person. In fact, this was the path he had taken. First, he was a trainee, then he debuted. He had his moments of glory, but the period before he met Chen Zhao was also his lowest point. If the risk is so high, why do you still do this? Do you believe it, Mr. Chen? I do, Chen Zhao answered after some thought. Ha! Feelings are one thing, but as an industry insider, I know some operational plans that can avoid a lot of risks, so I'm quite confident in this. High risk also means high return. Chapter 2753. Xiao He, come and meet Mr. Chen. He'll be one of your bosses in the future. Xiao He walked over to Qin Zhao, trembling. President Chen, hello? Xiao He looked at Qin Zhao with some fear in her eyes. It was probably because in the movies anyone with the word boss wasn't a good person. So, she kept her head down in front of Qin Zhao and didn't dare to meet his eyes. One, he was quite observant. He probably knew what was going on in Xiao He's mind. He could only give Qin Zhao an apologetic look. Qin Zhao smiled and shook his head. Actually, they'd all experienced this kind of immaturity in society before. No one would give Xiao He a hard time because of this. For the people of society, immaturity was a rare and precious quality in their eyes. Just then, Qin Zhao received Fei Lai's call. Darling, I think the kids and I are being watched. Hearing Fei Lai's words, Chen Zhao's expression changed. He said to Wang He and Xiao He, I'm going to take a call. After walking out of the restaurant, Chen Zhao asked, Huh? You're outside now? No, in the hotel. How did you find out? I don't know. It's just a feeling. I'll go back now, Chen Zhao said. Although he felt that this kind of thing was very mysterious, sometimes it was just an illusion. However, Qin Zhao didn't think that it was Fei Lai's illusion. Everyone in the family was normal. Even Fei Lai, who was the closest to a normal person, had her senses strengthened because of Qin Zhao's protection spells. Since she sensed that someone was watching her, it was very likely that she was right. Qin Zhao didn't want to gamble with Fei Lai and his family. Even if there was no danger, he had to eliminate it. If there was danger, he had to be prepared. After greeting Wang He, Chen Zhao hurried back to the hotel. Fei Lai, how's it going? Gone, Fei Lai said. After you came back, the feeling disappeared. Fei Lai frowned and looked at Qin Zhao. I'm not joking. That feeling makes my hair stand on end. Frowning, Fei Lai looked at him. I'm not joking with you. That feeling makes my hair stand on end. Qin Zhao didn't feel it, but he still chose to believe Fei Lai. Qin Zhao analyzed the situation in his mind. Fei Lai was abroad and didn't know any enemies in the spiritual world. The people she knew were all from the supernatural organization. They would never hurt or spy on their own family. Thus, either the person monitoring them was not from the spirit world, or it was a cultivator from the country. However, he had no clue. Let's say it was a friar watching Fei Lai. Their ultimate target was very likely to be him. If it was an ordinary person spying on Fei Lai and her children, they might be looking for money. If he was a cultivator, then his goal would be much more complicated. If it was a cultivator, the other party would have chosen to retreat the moment he returned. However, his shadow vision did not detect it. Shadow vision allowed him to sense gazes from the shadows. No matter how vague it was, even if it was through surveillance cameras, he could sense it as long as it was subjective. But Qin Zhao did not activate shadow vision. Putting aside the other party's strength, at the very least, his standard was very high. Just then, he received West's call. West, what's wrong? President, are you in China now? Yeah, I'll be going back in 2 days. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it when we get back. No, guild leader, can you postpone it for 2 days? Why? Are you planning to usurp the throne in my absence? West didn't think the joke was funny at all. He'd found Chen Zhao in the first place. Plus, he didn't think that he had the ability and prestige to replace Chen Zhao. What a joke. If he had such thoughts, the members of the supernatural organization would probably be more than happy to tie him up and send him to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was too powerful. Furthermore, this kind of despairingly powerful strength also prevented anyone from having any thoughts of betrayal or resistance. Moreover, the supernatural organization only had a few people. Almost all the resources were obtained by Chen Zhao. If they chased Chen Zhao away, the people who stayed would hate them. Tell me, what's up? President, we've formed an alliance with a Chinese sect. A Chinese sect is interested in the supernatural organization. Chen Zhao was Chinese, but he knew that Chinese sects were all arrogant. The supernatural organization called itself an international organization, but it was actually a third-rate organization. The North American branch that Chen Zhao belonged to was even more remote. It was third-rate among third-rate organizations. Forming an alliance with a Chinese sect? Are you sure you're not joking? It's mainly because we have dragon products on hand. Some time ago, Ron Faxi made a batch of dragon blood jades and put them on the market, but they were immediately snapped up. Then, the buyers somehow found us and learned that we had more dragon blood on hand, so they planned to buy it all. However, we don't need that much money, so after a while, we reached an agreement. We can form an alliance and help each other. We can buy some of their magic and specialties, and we can also provide dragon blood. They will buy it at the market price, so it's a mutual exchange. At the same time, we can recommend 3 disciples to exchange places with each other every year, and they can go to each other's organization or sect to learn each other's spells. Damn, it's an exchange? That's a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing, but something happened. What happened? Did they go back on their word? That's not the case. The people who made the agreement with us didn't go back on their word. Their sect's elders and sect master personally promised them and even signed a magic contract. However, there was a problem in their sect. What's the problem? There's a rebellion in their sect. Right now, we only got some information through special channels. Their leader is dead. Of the 4 elders who made an agreement with us, 1 is heavily injured, 1 is captured, and 2 are missing. Not long ago, the 2 missing elders contacted us, hoping to get our help. It's not good for outsiders like us to get involved in their sect's internal affairs, right? It's their princess. She's in danger and needs our protection, but we're overseas. With our power, we don't dare to get involved in China's supernatural affairs. We don't have a princess in China. It's the leader's daughter. Chen Zhao sighed. Are you sure you want to get involved? Even if I get involved, I'm still an outsider. If I don't handle it well, it might cause endless trouble. But we've already made an agreement with them. We're allies. Now that the leader is dead, if we don't care about his daughter, that's going back on our word. Chapter 2754. Then what do you mean? We'll talk about cooperation later, but we have to save the girl at least. President, don't you think so? I don't have time now. Chen Zhao was still having a headache over his family. He didn't have time to save a stranger like a princess. President, what's more important than saving a princess whose life is in danger? Fei Lai and the kids are being watched. I don't have any leads yet. Do you think I have time to wander around at a time like this? Also, the leader's daughter isn't a princess. West fell silent. Fine. If you have the girl's contact information, give her a call and let her come to me. It's easy for me to protect her under my eyes, but I really don't have the time to look for her all over the country. No. No contact number? You don't have any elders who can contact you? They don't either. So they're missing people? Forget it. They've probably been eliminated by now. The fights between sects in China are very cruel. Killing 9 generations is basic. They're definitely not dead. That's what their elders said. Their elders can't even find a single person, and they're so confident that they're going to trick you into this and drag you down. And you're so confident that you're going to agree? I don't think they're bad people. West, I think you're usually a smart person. Why do you have to get involved in this? So what if they're saved? That sect has already changed its name. Although the alliance is no longer valid, don't make enemies. It's really troublesome. President, I think there's something wrong with you. You're usually fearless. How come you're even more cowardly than me now? Anyway, I don't care. If you want to, do it yourself. If we foreigners go to China, we'll be targeted as soon as we get off the plane. We're too eye-catching and can't move at all. President, you're Chinese. It's convenient for you. How about I protect Fei Lai and the kids while you save them? Save it. Qin Zhao didn't even know who was watching Fei Lai and the kids. It would be fine if they were weak, but in Huaxia's supernatural world, all sorts of demons and ghosts could exist. Qin Zhao had defeated 3 terrifying existences that were hard to come by overseas in the past month. Right, there was also the Taoist blood ancestor. He was considered half a Taoist blood ancestor. The supernatural organization's strength was above average in the world. However, this did not include Huaxia's supernatural world. The supernatural organization was nothing compared to the Huaxia supernatural community. It couldn't even cause a ripple. If the supernatural society was fighting on home soil, relying on the territory of Kong Mosa in the headquarters, they were basically not afraid of any enemy. Even if it was a super expert, they would be able to block it for at least half an hour. Shen Zhao would be able to make it in time. But in China, from the moment they set foot on this land, there were probably dozens of pairs of eyes staring at them. The supernatural organization dared to go against everything in the United States. Even a fart here would cause a misunderstanding. Guild leader, I beg you. Is that girl your illegitimate daughter? Is there a need for this? No, I have to keep my promise. If guild leader doesn't agree, I'll come here myself. I won't bring anyone else. I'll come alone. Fuck, Chen Zhao cursed inwardly. This old bastard also knew how to play this kind of trick. What did he mean? Wasn't he just saying that he was going to die? Fine. Tell me, that sect. I'll think of something for you. You just stay in LA and don't go anywhere. Chen Zhao's face was filled with displeasure. He wanted to kill this old bastard when he got back. That sect is called Lianshanzong. What's that? Qin Zhao couldn't understand West's authentic American pinyin translation. It's the sect that refined God's spirits, the God refinement sect. West tried his best to straighten his tongue and repeated himself. He also added his understanding. To be able to refine even a God spirit, this sect was pretty amazing. West had been scared by the name of the alchemy sect back then. He felt that it must be very powerful. Oh, it's the alchemy sect, right? Chen Zhao roughly understood. I'll find Zhang Tianyi to understand the situation first. I'll contact you if there's any news. Okay, West said hurriedly. It's best if Celestial Master Zhang can help. If Celestial Master Zhang could intervene, at least the girl's chances of survival would be very high. Hey, old Zhang. Tell me, what do you need me to do? What's with your attitude? You cried and begged me. Now that it's over, you're going to turn against me? You're acting like a big shot in front of me? Ha! You have to have the attitude to ask for help. I wasn't arrogant in front of you back then, right? You must have something to ask of me. I'm not begging you. I'm planning to buy a few shops in the town at the foot of Dragon Tiger Mountain and clean up the scammers there. Can you give me some advice? Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. That's a special scenic area. Do you think you can buy it with money? Ha! You really can buy it with money. I'll call my assistant now and contact the local government. I'll invest $100 million. If $100 million isn't enough, I'll invest $1 billion. If $1 billion isn't enough, I'll invest $10 billion. In the future, I'll only accept Dragon Tiger Mountain Taoists. I'll treat them well and fiercely. Chase away all the Taoists from other places. Fuck, just say it. How can you be like this? You don't need me to beg you? I'm joking with you. Huh? Actually, I'm joking with you too. Okay, say it. What do you want? Do you know if there's anyone in the spiritual world who wants to harm me or my family? Zhang Tianyi shuddered violently. Chen Zhao, you're not joking with me, right? What do you think? I've never heard of this. Is it Zhang Ding's trusted aide? I had a feud with him in China. Did you forget the killer organization you wiped out? You mean the killer organization? Huh? No. Are you messing with me? I'm just reminding you that even though you killed the leader of the killer organization, there are still some who escaped. Then how can you be sure that it's not someone from the killer organization who wants to take revenge on me? How much do you think they love their organization? How much loyalty do you think they have? If you destroy the assassin organization, they can just change to another organization. If not, they can also change to another job. Is there a need to go against you? So you're sure it's not the killer organization? In other words, it's Zhang Ding who wants to harm me and my family. Chapter 2755. Actually, I don't think it's Zhang Ding. Why not? I think it's his doing. I didn't kill him last time and only disabled him. Looks like I'm too soft-hearted. Hearing that, Zhang Tianyi only wanted to chuckle. Soft-hearted? Spare his life? If that's the case, you might as well kill him. The entire Mao Mountain would thank your family. After all, if Zhang Ding died, they could also announce to the world that Zhang Daojun had passed away due to his illness. But now, Zhang Ding only had his neck left. He couldn't even speak properly. The entire Mao Mountain was in an awkward situation. They could say that Zhang Ding was dead, but he was alive and well. They could avenge Zhang Ding, but no one responded. They could forget about Kunlun and Dragon Tiger Mountain. Even their own elders didn't support it. They couldn't beat them. It would be suicide if the old and the young attacked together. Moreover, the Mao Mountain wasn't peaceful either. A few sneaky people wanted to take advantage of the situation. They also wanted to be Daojun. The current Zhang Ding was a loner. Not to mention taking revenge for him. It was only because the Maoshan sect was merciful that they did not kill him. It couldn't be said that Zhang Ding couldn't be killed. It could only be said that it was infinitely close to zero. His neck is the only thing he can move now. How do you expect him to take revenge on you? Bite you to death with his mouth? He can't move. He must have an accomplice, right? He must have a trusted aide, right? He does have a son. Do you want to kill him? I can give you the address. Sure, I think it's most likely his son. Yes, his son is in the 3rd class of Spring Thunder Kindergarten. His name is Zhang Mingchan. He's 5 years old. Remember to tell me when you succeed. Going to a kindergarten to seek revenge? Was he tired of living? Are there any more reliable suspects? For example, Zhang Ding's sweetheart who loves him to death. After knowing what happened to him, she won't let me live under the same sky as her. His wife died a long time ago. He did have a few mistresses outside, but they were all one-night stands. He only had one offspring, so there is no suspect like you are hoping for. Accomplice? Trusted aide? He was completely paralyzed by you, and his forces have vanished along with him. In other words, it's not him? He's just trying to stir up some trouble. Do you think the entire Maoshan sect would agree to it? He's currently being held captive by the people of the Maoshan sect. The only reason he's still alive is because he still has value in being alive, not because of his identity, and certainly not because they want him to cause more trouble for the Maoshan sect. Alright, do you know the God-refining sect? God-refining sect? Wasn't that a 3rd or 4th-rate sect? I have some impression of it. Yo, Grand Celestial Master Zhang, you still have an impression of a 3rd or 4th-rate sect? You really have a photographic memory. I remember the Refining God sect because of the previous Battle of Holy Glory. The Refining God sect had participated once, and they were also active in the big event 20 years ago. However, the Refining God sect expert who was active in the big event killed the Demon Clan expert in a battle. Including him, the 28 cultivators who died in the battle. I was the one who recited the eulogy, so I have some impression. Zhang Tianyi paused and suddenly said, "You're not suspecting that the Refining God sect has something to do with the surveillance of your wife and son, are you? The Refining God sect only has a few dozen disciples, and there isn't a single first-rate expert among them. I don't think they would get involved. Even if their subordinates dared to, their sect master wouldn't agree." "Oh? Why wouldn't they agree?" Qin Zhao didn't think that way at first, but he read another meaning in Zhang Tianyi's words. He didn't just have an impression of the Refining God sect. The fact that he could be so sure that the Refining God sect wouldn't cause trouble for him seemed to be a judgment made from a different perspective. Their sect master, Li Daming, is said to have been a farmer in his early years. He has a mellow personality, but of course, in layman's terms, he's honest and timid. The Refining God sect doesn't have many capable people, and the only one who looked good died 20 years ago. Therefore, the Refining God sect has always maintained a low profile. Do you know how low profile they are? How low profile? Once, a disciple of their sect caught a human trafficker and beat the human trafficker until he was crippled. In the end, Li Daming actually asked the disciple to turn himself in to the police station. In the end, the police were reasonable and didn't file a case. They even gave the disciple a banner for bravery. When I first heard this name, I didn't think it was a righteous sect. Even if it wasn't a big villain sect, it was at least a lowly one. Why do I feel that the Refining God sect master is a little too afraid of trouble? The only thing that's famous about them is the name of their sect. Anyone could be targeting you, except for the Refining God sect. It's impossible even if Li Daming ate a bear's heart and leopard's gall. Alright, I've never suspected that the Refining God sect is targeting me and my family. Then why are you asking about the Refining God sect? How do you know about the Refining God sect that's hiding in this corner? There seems to be a change in the Immortal Refinement sect. The Loki and extraordinary Li Daming that you mentioned was killed by someone. Now, his daughter is also being hunted. I was asked by someone to lend a helping hand and help his daughter. Is that so? Zhang Tianyi only frowned slightly. To him, this was a small matter that didn't matter. There were hundreds of such incidents in the Huaxia spiritual world every year. There was nothing to be surprised about. Not to mention a small sect like the Refining God sect. Even a sacred Taoist sect like the Three Mountains had gone through a few changes of orthodoxy. Zhang Tianyi only felt that it was a pity that the good guy in the spiritual world was gone just like that. So what do you mean? Help me find the suspect and find out where Li Daming's daughter is. It's best if you can tell her to come find me. That way, I won't have to look for her. Alright, I've met Li Daming once. If it's convenient, I'll help. Zhang Tianyi's attitude was similar to Qin Zhao's. If it's convenient. If there's nothing else, hurry up and scram. You're a scourge if you stay in the country. *T, when you begged me to come back as soon as possible. Now that I've used it, you're giving me a cold shoulder? You've helped me a lot, but you've also caused a lot of trouble. Besides, did you go to the Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heavenly Master Sect's library for free? Even if it's a brothel, you still have to pay. I let you eat there for free for 3 days and 3 nights. Isn't that enough? Next time you come to America, I'll find you an equal opponent. Then I'll invite you to the headquarters of the Supernatural Organization for a day tour. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Chapter 2756. Qin Zhao wanted to go home as soon as possible. However, his family was being watched. Qin Zhao couldn't guarantee that the person wouldn't come after him even if he returned home. After all, most cultivators didn't feel guilty about causing trouble in North America. So, it was understandable if the cultivator came to North America to cause trouble. Moreover, once he went to North America, the cultivator or force watching him might be even more unscrupulous. After all, if they caused trouble in China, they might be invited for tea by the relevant departments. But in North America, Qin Zhao was the relevant department. After hanging up Zhang Tiany's call, Qin Zhao thought about how to find the mastermind. He couldn't think of a way no matter how hard he thought. But he suddenly thought of Mo Han. Yes, professional work should be handled by professionals. Qin Zhao immediately called Mo Han. Old Mo, where are you? I'm still in Shanghai. Boss, what's up? My wife suspects that she and the child are being watched. How do we find out who's watching us? Mo Han thought about it. He didn't ask if they were really being watched or if it was an illusion. For cultivators, as long as there was a suspicion, it was confirmed. Regardless of whether they were being watched or not, they had to find out who it was. Boss, you can tell your employees that you're going back to Los Angeles tomorrow. Huh? You're suspecting my employees? Since the other party wants to deal with you, they'll naturally investigate your information, and it's not difficult to investigate your information in China. The other party is likely to obtain some of your information through your company's employees. So, boss, as long as you tell your employees that you're returning to Los Angeles tomorrow, the other party will definitely take action first. Are you sure they'll act first? Instead of waiting until we get to Los Angeles? It's the same in North America. Black-haired and black-eyed people are more likely to attract attention. There's an iron rule in the assassin world: try not to go to other races to carry out missions. That's why the top assassin in Africa is a black man, the top assassin in Europe and the United States is a white man, and the top assassin in Asia is an Asian man. That's because the region has limited the isolation of the assassin industry. Mo Han paused for a moment, then said, Moreover, if they rashly go to North America, it will be very difficult for them to get supplies there, and it will be very easy for them to expose their whereabouts. So, before you stay in China, or on the plane, this is undoubtedly the best choice. Zhang Ting, inform my employees that I'm going back to Los Angeles tomorrow. We'll have dinner tonight. Boss, don't you have a flight in 2 days? Something cropped up, so I had to bring it forward. All right, I'll inform the staff. Zhang Ting didn't like Qin Zhao's crazy way of doing things. It could be said that he already had a certain level of immunity. Qin Zhao often went crazy when people came to him. But every time, it was harmless and insignificant. So, Zhang Ting quite liked Qin Zhao as a boss. That night, Qin Zhao held a big banquet. They ate and drank. The guests and the host enjoyed themselves to the fullest. After sending the employees of the animation company out of the hotel, Qin Zhao vaguely felt a gaze on him. It was very subtle, but it couldn't escape Qin Zhao's senses. However, Qin Zhao could only sense it. He couldn't find any traces of the person. The person probably wasn't monitoring him with his eyes. Qin Zhao analyzed in his mind. Qin Zhao returned to the hotel expressionlessly. The gaze also disappeared. This meant that the person was outside the hotel. It probably wasn't a surveillance device. It should be some kind of spell that could avoid Qin Zhao's shadow vision. However, it was also clear that the person was very powerful. At least in terms of surveillance, the person was definitely unparalleled. After Qin Zhao returned to the hotel, a blurry figure moved through the streets under the night sky. After a few turns, it disappeared into the city. Whoosh! A cool breeze whistled through the wilderness. The cool breeze brushed past a few figures. If Qin Zhao was here, he would realize that one of them was Qin Zhao, whom he met once before. The person who sent the message is back? Yes, he's back. He's planning to leave tomorrow and go back to America. He's leaving tomorrow? Zhou Yinan's expression changed. No, we have to act quickly. We'll do it tonight. No, we can't do it tonight. The other person immediately rejected Zhou Yinan's request. This person was one-eyed. His hair was messy and he wore loose clothes. However, his single eye flashed with a dangerous light. That's the city. If we attack there and can't subdue him instantly, We won't be able to escape the subsequent pursuit no matter how powerful we are, the one-eyed person said. We definitely can't do it in the city. Then he's leaving tomorrow. Do we have to chase him to America? Joinan said, unwilling to give up. No need for that. We can do it on the way to the airport. After all, most of the roads to the airport were in the suburbs. As long as they made proper arrangements, they could still find a chance. Remember, Joinan said solemnly, we can't fight him head-on. It's best if we can use his wife and children as a threat. After they parted at Hanwang Mountain, he didn't believe Wang Hai and Li Ke's words. Later, he suddenly heard that Zhang Ding was seriously injured for no reason and then resigned from his position as Dao Lord and sect leader. He asked around and found out that it was Zhang Ding who had caused trouble outside. His enemies had even gone to the Mao Mountain gate. The enemy had managed to escape unscathed. It was said that the enemy's surname was Qin. Zhou Yinan had been scared out of his wits. But he still remembered Qin Zhao. After all, that matter was too important to him. He had to take the risk. Fortunately, the people he found were all from the Five Elements sect. 2 of them were even from the Five Elements sect's inner sect. Not only were they powerful, but they also had extraordinary identities. They were many times more powerful than outer sect disciples like Zhou Yinan. Moreover, they didn't know the identity of the person they were dealing with. They only heard that Qin Zhao was rich. Under Zhou Yinan's encouragement, they joined in. Zhou Yinan had reminded them many times. Qin Zhao's cultivation was unfathomable. But he purposely hid the fact that Qin Zhao had once caused a ruckus in the Mao Mountain inner sect. That incident had caused a huge ruckus in Mao Mountain. Therefore, the impression they had was that Qin Zhao had some cultivation. He was the kind of person who wasn't as strong as the strong but was better than the weak. Chapter 2757. Zhou Yinan was afraid. If they found out, their target would be his glorious achievements. They would directly turn their guns and take him down first. Old Lai, continue to use your breeze guide to monitor the target. The one-eyed dragon looked at a middle-aged man. This man had a dejected face. No matter how you looked at him, he looked dispirited. His clothes were crooked and torn, and he had stubble on the side of his mouth. Although Old Lai looked insignificant, his strength was second only to the one-eyed dragon among the people present. He was also an outer sect disciple of the Five Elements sect, but his cultivation was a bit stronger than the other inner sect disciple of the Five Elements sect. On the other hand, he had brought his skills into the sect, and he had many unique skills. This breeze guide was one of them. This breeze guide was like a breeze that led into a dream. The spring rain was silent. A cool breeze blew past, and everything became clear without a trace. Therefore, the person being monitored had no idea at all. Old Lai sat on the ground in a dispirited manner. He silently raised his head and glanced at everyone. The wind tells me that I shouldn't have gotten involved. That person is very fierce. If we continue to go against him, our lives will be in danger. There is no way out of this. Zhou Yinan looked at Old Lai in dissatisfaction. He was blaming him for disturbing the morale of the army at this critical moment. However, Old Lai didn't care about Zhou Yinan's gaze. He was feeling depressed. The information he received wasn't as simple as a little danger. Breeze Guide wasn't omnipotent, but it could allow the caster to avoid most dangers to a certain extent. Now, Breeze Guide had made Old Lai feel danger. And this danger wasn't present in the past. This trip would definitely be filled with death. However, it was impossible for these people to let him go. After all, everyone was on the same boat. If anyone wanted to go ashore alone, they would be going against everyone. You don't have to say that anymore. The one-eyed dragon looked at Old Lai with a hint of warning. That's all I have to say, Old Lai said decisively. Black Monk, on the way to the airport, can you find a chance to attack? The one-eyed dragon looked at a monk in a black robe. This monk had a fat head and big ears. His face was red and he looked like a monk who drank and ate meat. He wasn't a disciple of the Five Elements sect, but he could be considered to be birds of a feather with the one-eyed dragon. Furthermore, his cultivation was not weak, and he also had the special Dharma spells of the Buddhist sect. That was why they had invited this black-hearted monk for this operation. My one-leaf Bodhi technique can allow their chariots to enter the Brahma sacred realm without anyone noticing. Dragon Skeleton, you're in charge of holding that person back. I don't expect you to defeat him, just hold him back for 3 minutes. Humph. Dragon Skeleton snorted in dissatisfaction. I didn't join you just to hold them back for 3 minutes. Long Ben was extremely confident in his cultivation. He believed that he was not weaker than anyone else. Of course, he had the right to be arrogant. He had cultivated a peerless cultivation technique and had a fortuitous encounter when he was young. He rarely had a match among his peers, and he had never tasted defeat among those of the same level. He had also seen the target's information. Their ages were about the same as his. In his opinion, no matter how strong the other party's cultivation was, it couldn't be that strong. Could it be that the other party was stronger than him? In his opinion, there was no need to go through so much trouble. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were nothing more than laughable tricks. Therefore, Dragon Skeleton felt that he should just charge into the hotel and take control of that person and his wife and children. Unfortunately, his teammates were a bunch of cowards. They were also overcautious when doing things and did not dare to act so directly. The one-eyed man's gaze landed on the woman in red. Shu Hongi, read our fortune. Great calamity. The woman in red replied coldly. Everyone furrowed their brows. Shu Hongi was a descendant of the Zhuge clan, but the Zhuge clan had always been passed down to males and not females. Even the surname was not allowed to be passed down to females. Shu Hongi was dissatisfied with the clan's tradition. That was why she abandoned her clan and joined the Five Elements sect. She even became an inner disciple of the Five Elements sect. Although she had abandoned the Zhuge clan, she still inherited the flawless divination, the Zhuge clan's strongest technique. The flawless divination was the Zhuge clan's secret technique. It could see the past, the future, and see through the stars. Is there a way to break it? There is, but I'll have to cripple all of your cultivations and use your blood as a medium. I'll be able to find a way to break it. Everyone's expressions did not look too good. What kind of joke is this? You want us to cripple all of our cultivations and read your fortune? The Dragon Skeleton had a fiery temper. He cursed loudly. I think you're up to no good. Shu Hongi glanced at the Dragon Skeleton, then looked away and did not speak. Some people did not believe it, but others did. Zhou Yinan knew that Chen Zhao's cultivation was unfathomable. He naturally believed Shu Hongi's words. However, he already knew that this trip would not bode well. Thus, he did not hesitate at all. The other person who believed it was Old Rogue. He had already received Qingfeng's guidance and had some understanding. Shu Hongi's words only confirmed his suspicions. Since this trip is so dangerous, why don't we just give up? Giving up is even more dangerous. We'll die for sure. Shu Hongi said calmly. Shu Hongi calmly said. That person will definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. As long as that person senses even the slightest movement, there's no chance of us surviving. He's just a fake foreigner. Why should we be afraid of him? The black monk said nonchalantly. These cultivators believed in fate, but they would not fear it. They were all people who believed that they could go against the heavens. They believed in the results of Shu Hongi's divination. However, they were also extremely confident in what they had learned. They thought that they could use their spells to change the situation. However, if they did not have such confidence, they would have long since rotted away in an alley or in the wilderness. However, Shu Hongi's words cast a shadow over their hearts. The situation did not seem to be as perfect as they had expected. All the plans had been carried out according to plan. The only problem was that the target was much stronger than they had expected. At least, Shu Hongi's divination had explained the situation. Let's stick to the plan, the one-eyed dragon said. At the same time, he turned to look at Shu Hongi. Hongi, according to the plan, you have to set up an ultimate formation to trap that person. Are you confident? No, Chu Hongi said honestly. But I'll do my best. Alright, let's stick to the plan. The one-eyed dragon did not ask for more. It was enough that he could do his best. There was actually another meaning in Zhu Hongi's words. Only the one-eyed dragon could tell. After all, they were the most familiar with each other. They were both from the inner sect of the Five Elements sect. They were not just disciples in name. In fact, they had a previous relationship, so it was not as simple as knowing each other. What Zhu Hongi meant was that if things did not go according to plan, she would take care of herself. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.